Okay, we should be live. Make sure, let me just check my microphone. Okay, we're on the right microphone. Okay, okay. Alright, so we got a lot of topics to discuss on today's stream. As I always do, if you're new to the channel, be sure to get subscribed. If you're not subscribed, pretty much not more than 90% of all my viewers on my YouTube videos are not subscribed to the channel. So it does kind of hurt my channel growth in terms of the algorithm. I don't really like to nag people to hit that bell icon and subscribe, but if you like this sort of content, definitely get subscribed because it does help me out. Hey Joey, good evening. So for those that are new, again, if you like this content, this in-depth look at things like overclocking, just PC DIY in general, get subscribed to the channel. That's all I can say, because the channel kind of gets buried under the, I don't know what to say, the dirge of all the different YouTube videos out there. But we have a lot to talk about on this stream. We're going to be talking about DDR5, because I have been doing a lot of testing with DDR5 over the course of the last week, particularly on Intel, and I do plan to test more on AMD, but we're going to talk about both of them because I have learned a whole lot about running 4 sticks of memory on Intel, because I never bothered to investigate that on the 13900K. Right here, you guys can see it's 13900K, 13th gen right there. Supposedly, well, what I have found is there's a lot of content of people asking about, like, running a lot of RAM on AMD. There's not a whole lot of content on the internet pertaining to running a lot of RAM on Intel, surprisingly enough, outside of like an HEDT, like an old Skylake X system or some kind of workstation with Xeon. Outside of that, if we're talking like prosumer, consumer desktop, mainstream desktop, you know, typically Z790, Z690, whether we're talking Alder Lake or Raptor Lake, there is not a lot of content covering this topic in particular. Usually, there's a lot of videos out there, including the video that I did back in February on AMD, when it comes to running a lot of RAM, a lot of DDR5. And as we saw in the video back in February, on AMD, you can get 4800 megahertz across 4 DIMMs for a total of 128 gigabytes of memory. On Intel, I thought, the assumption going into this little experiment was that I could do more with the 13th gen, because supposedly the memory controller can hit really, really high speeds. But there's a caveat, there's a huge asterisk in that statement, in making that statement about high-speed DDR5 on Intel. The asterisk that pretty much nobody mentions is that that pertains to 2 sticks of RAM, so it's a dual-channel configuration, and it is 2 sticks of either 16 gigabytes and in some cases 32 gigabytes. But most of the time it's 2 sticks of 16. I mean, in some cases it could even be 2 sticks of 8, but you don't see a lot of people running DDR5 with only 2 sticks of 8, so like a total of 16 gigabytes. No one's really doing that on DDR5. Most of the time you'll see 32 gigabyte config. So that means 216. And that is the most common one, and that is the one that if you go look online, you'll see people being able to clock to 7200, 7600, etc., even 8000. And that at those speeds, it really brings out the quality of 2 things. Well, 3 things. One, the memory itself. So you're pretty much on Hynix A die, maybe M die. And then you're relying on the IMC, so the integrated memory controller of the motherboard. And then the third thing is the motherboard, because the motherboard itself, when you clock really high, the trace wires, the layout that the manufacturer chose with their design decisions, that's a key part of running like high-speed memory on an Intel configuration. Is 4x8 on an AMD system a good idea, or is going 2x16 would be a better? I'm talking about the new AM5. Okay, we will talk very in depth about AMD. That is, so for those that don't know, actually let me go ahead and bring up the schedule for the viewers. Hold on, let me move you guys over here. So that's a great question, and I'll answer that here in a second. Let me move this around. So the topic for this stream, this is what we're going to talk about. So we're first going to talk about Intel, then we're going to talk about AMD, because I've already talked about AMD. I've covered AMD pretty much all year, and I feel like I have omitted Intel, and that was a huge mistake, because if I had done these tests on Intel months ago, I would have had a much better picture going forward in terms of what Intel can actually do. Because the TLDR is Intel is actually not any better than AMD when it comes to 4 sticks of RAM, and we're going to get into that. Because I just put a video up today showcasing how to run 128 gigabytes of memory on an Intel 13th generation. And spoiler alert, it's exactly the same as AM5. So AM5 can also do 128 at 4800, as I showed in a video way back in February of this year. So to answer your question, we're going to talk about AMD. That's going to be the second topic on this stream. Then we're going to talk about some other things. You still only want 2 sticks of RAM on Intel. I don't care. I'm going for high density. I understand like the memory bandwidth, memory latency. I don't care about that. I'm all about density. I'm all about like workstation use case, power user use case, running virtual machines, you know, scaling up all the stuff you can do that requires a lot of memory. So yeah, if we're talking just like a typical, you know, everyday PC for whatever, then yeah, 2 sticks of memory, that's the way to go. And we're going to talk about 2 sticks of memory too, because I have been testing 2 sticks. So Thunderbolt, we may talk about Thunderbolt. There's only one thing I want to say about that. So I did install, there will be a video about this. So I did pick up, I had to import this from Japan. So the Thunderbolt 4 add-in card, because apparently ASRock doesn't sell their Thunderbolt 4 cards in the US. So there's no way to buy this. You can't buy this off of Amazon or Newegg or even Micro Center. So I had to import this. I bought this off of eBay from someone in Japan. So it just came in today, so I'm going to be talking about this. No, I did not get Ratchet & Clank. Unfortunately, I did not get Ratchet & Clank. I might get it. I really don't feel like getting that game right now. Maybe if I do get it, I'll do another stream this weekend. I'll think about it. But I have the Thunderbolt card from ASRock, and I will do a video on it. Spoiler alert, the Gigabyte card is better, and the Gigabyte card is sold in the US market for those that are watching from the US, and this applies to Canada. So North America, we have access to the Gigabyte Thunderbolt card, which is actually superior to the ASRock one. Both of them are significantly cheaper than the Asus one. The Asus one is a huge waste of money. It is like way expensive for some reason. And it's like no better than the Gigabyte one. So we're going to talk about Thunderbolt a little bit. And we're going to talk about memory. Because, oh boy, have I been testing memory. I have been testing all kinds of memory. And so that's what the majority of this stream is going to be talking about. And then we're going to talk about Starfield, because I will have Starfield. For those of you that don't know, I was thinking about doing a video on the RX 6700. So I have access to Starfield Premium Edition, so the $100 Starfield. I already have it. I can't play it because it's not released, but I have it through AMD because I bought the RX 6700 because that is the cheapest graphics card that you can buy that literally gives you the free Starfield Premium. So I might do some content on the 6700. The 6700, I currently don't have the actual card with me because it was given to a family member. So I may have to go back and like trade them for the 7600 or something like that if I want to like get access to that card for some video content. But anyway, I have Starfield via AMD, so I will be playing Starfield. So rest assured, that game will be covered in depth on this channel, just like Hogwarts Legacy was earlier this year, and Forspoken. And then we're going to talk about the Nvidia stuff, because there's a lot of news that just popped up recently in the last day or two about Nvidia. Oh, you sold your 4080? Why? Are you going to at least continue your playthrough of Hogwarts? I will try to continue the playthrough. I don't know. It's all about like scheduling, possibly. But if I play Hogwarts, I'll try to do like one live stream where I'm only playing Hogwarts, where we're not distracted by drawing things on paint and talking about technology stuff. But anyway, so that's kind of the schedule. So let's get into Intel first, because Intel, so those of you that know, I have the 13900K. This is the CPU. The video is on the channel as of today. I did all my testing. One thing I will say, well, I don't know if there's anything for me to draw, but I will tell you guys one thing that was very disappointing was that Intel, for whatever reason, if Intel's not stable, it's hard to tell if your memory is stable or not, unless you're playing Forspoken or unless you're like running mem tests for 24 hours. So in my case, I wasn't going to sit around and wait for 24 hours to do a mem test sitting there running off of a USB drive. So what I did was I assumed that it was stable at 5600. So here, let's illustrate this. So I tested, and I've got the RAM here. For those that don't know, I will... there's a link in that video, but anyway, you guys can see right here, this is G-Skill Rip Jaws. These are 4 sticks. They're in the Intel computer, so I don't have them physically with me. But I tested... why'd you sell the 4080, by the way? I'm really curious. You were disappointed with it, or not enough VRAM? Not enough VRAM for the money? Anyway, so I tested G-Skill Ripjaws S5, so that is XMP memory, for those that don't know. If it says Ripjaws, S5 means DDR5, and Ripjaws means it's XMP, meaning it's supposed to go with an Intel CPU, but doesn't have to. If it says Flare X, it is the exact same memory, it's just with an Expo profile for an AMD CPU, which you can still use with an Intel CPU. It wasn't the VRAM? You're going to buy the 4090 soon to replace it with it. Okay. Okay. So I tested 4x 32 gigabytes. So that is 128 gigabytes at 5600. This is the rated Expo profile. So I tested this at 1 point, I think it was 1 point, it was just 1.25. That's the voltage that the memory kit uses. And cache latency, the primary timings were 30, 36, 36, 89. So this is what I tested on the Intel. Now, for those of you that have been watching me for a couple of months, you would recognize that this memory kit was previously used with the Ryzen 9 CPU instead. So I was using this Intel XMP memory. This is XMP. There's no Expo profile. XMP. So I was using XMP with the AMD CPU, and it worked at 4800. So AMD passes at 4800 megahertz. Now here's the spoiler for those that didn't watch the video. Intel also passes at 4800 megahertz. So basically, the TLDR was Intel at 128 gigs, at least my 13900K, was no better than my 7950X when it came to running 128. I was running it at 56 initially, but the thing that ended up happening was there were silent memory errors that eventually corrupted my Windows 10 kernel. I repeat, my Windows 10 kernel on my Intel 13th gen system got corrupted by unstable memory, basically destroying my operating system in the background. And what's weird is when I would check the event viewer, I didn't see any way errors. I didn't see any kind of like memory errors. I wouldn't even get like a weird scenario where YouTube would, like the browser would crash, because when I would test for stability with AMD, AMD would give me subtle hints that it's not stable. For example, if I go and fire up a YouTube video while playing a game, all of a sudden, like halfway through the YouTube video, the browser tab would literally just crash. It wouldn't crash. It would just like go to like a disconnect, and Google Chrome would say, "Aw, snap, something went wrong." So like I literally say that. So that indicated to me that AMD wasn't stable. So then I'd have to go and mess with uClock, have to go and try Gear 2 mode, I'd have to up the voltage, I'd have to lower the memory divider, etc. Now with Intel never did any of that. So I thought Intel was stable, and I made the assumption that, oh, Intel supposedly has a better memory controller than AMD because it's second generation versus like Alder Lake was their first generation, and Alder Lake was pretty much garbage with 4 DIMMs. So I thought it was okay, but no, it caused me like hours of having to recover Windows and all the stuff that got messed up. Like I couldn't even get into the repair. The repair process would blue screen while it was trying to load like diagnostic, loading out off of UEFI. So I basically had to clear CMOS, retrain to like 4,000 megahertz, so like slow, and then I could get into the repair diagnostics, and then I actually had to use my thumb drive to reinstall repair Windows. So not a very good experience, and I was not happy with that. Just to put it nicely as I could possibly put it, that pretty much wasted an entire Tuesday evening for me this week. That clock speed isn't stable when they were running at those high RAM clocks. Oh, well, if you're talking about Intel at like 5600, it was not stable for me. And you'll see it in the video. The video that I uploaded today, it took me a few days to make that video because I was trying to verify that 5600 was stable, and it was totally not stable. I tried 5200 today, but for some reason, the Gigabyte BIOS would not train to 52. It would always like default back to 48, even after clearing the CMOS. So it was kind of annoying. So I assume that I have to mess with the VCCSA, which is basically Intel's equivalent of the VSOC on AMD. So I don't know. Like I've spent pretty much a day and a half wasting my time trying to get 5600 to run on Intel across 128 gigs of memory. I finally gave up. It's currently running at 4800. It's stable. I've stress tested it. I've done I've run like Forspoken on it. It didn't crash. I ran multiple browser tabs while running Forspoken, while running multiple YouTube videos, all kinds of stuff, and it was stable. So I'm pretty sure for me, Intel passes 100% daily stability at 4800, just like AMD. So when it comes to 128 gigs, AMD and Intel pretty much are exactly the same. Now, granted, I never tested AMD Expo memory at that capacity, but I don't think that it would fare any differently. So bottom line is I tested Expo memory on both AMD and Intel, and the memory was rated for 5600, but I can only get it to run stable at 4800. When they were running 8000 for Zen 4, it wasn't stable. No, actually that's not what I heard. So I've heard, there's a couple of people that I've read, like Buildzoid tested it, and he got it working. I don't know if his was 100% stable, though. So it depends on who you're looking at. But Bill from AMD, his was stable. And I think Buildzoid's was stable, but I'm not 100% sure because I didn't watch to the end of that live stream. But yeah, I think it can be stable. And the reason why it can be stable is because at 8000, here's the reason why 8000 works on AMD. So when you run 8000 megahertz, which is 8000 mega transfers per second, that is equal to, so if you take the memory clock, it says Am I in the AMD Vanguard driver server? No, I'm not. Do I need to join that one? I don't. If you have a link, I'll join it. I'm not in it. 4,000 mega transfers per second is, or let's say 4,000 megahertz is the actual mem clock. This is M clock. And the U clock, hold on, is this right? 4,000. Yeah. So in this scenario, 2,000 megahertz is U clock because we are running in Gear 2 mode, because U clock equals half mem clock when you're running 8,000 megatransfers. My friend that is an AMD employee got me in there. Okay, well, I mean, I'd like to be in there. But anyway, this is the reason why 8,000 megahertz works on AMD, because it's a magic ratio between F clock and U clock. So F clock, as we know, the fabric always runs stock at 2 gigahertz or 2,000 megahertz. So this is the reason why. Because when you're doing 8,000, your RAM's effective clock is 4,000, because it's always half, because that, hence the name DDR, double data rate. This is the DDR, this is the actual memory. This is the U clock, because we are running at half the speed of the memory clock, so 4,000 divided by 2, that's 2,000. And the fabric clock is always 2,000. Now you can kind of overclock it a little bit to, like, 2133 or something. I don't bother with that. But this is the reason why 8,000 is kind of the I don't want to say it's the sweet spot, but it's kind of the next sweet spot, if that makes sense. Because at this speed, your F clock and your U clock are both running at 2 gigahertz. It can be stable at 8,000, but the real question is if the performance is better than... So the reason why... the reason why it's the best that you'd be able to get at that speed is because of what I just said. Because U clock and F clock end up being equal. Meaning, at 8,000 megahertz on the RAM, U clock equals F clock. That's why. You have these two as the same, which means you do not incur an additional latency penalty due to the translator, or I guess the synchronizer, having to synchronize the data flow through the fabric and the IMC. Does that make sense? So the reason why that happens is because, and we were supposed to be talking about Intel, now we're just talking about AMD. I feel like we've just kind of like skipped over what I wanted to talk about. But if we go to, well, let me bring this up. So if we put this somewhere here, so you guys can see, what do I want to do with this? I kind of want to move this somewhere, but anyway, you guys can see, just put this here. We don't need the memory clock stuff anymore, so we'll just put this there. So the reason why 8,000 is kind of the magic number, just like 6,000 was. So everybody, I think, in the chat understands why 6,000 is the magic ratio. That's because of the Gear 1. That's because U clock and mem clock are the same. But in Gear 2 mode, I guess the name of the game when you're running in Gear 2 mode is to get F clock and U clock to be the same speed. So because F clock is, and I'll use blue, I guess. No, let's use red. This right here, this is F clock. This is the fabric. See right here, it's literally labeled. It says F clock on it. This over here, Unified Memory Controller, or UMC, if you've played around inside the AMD BIOS, you'll have seen under the AMD Common BIOS settings, or AMD CBS, there is an option for UMC. That stands for Unified Memory Controller. That is where things like Memory Context Restore, the options for that reside on a Gigabyte BIOS. On some other BIOSes, like ASRock, for example, it's in a different location, but it's also found in that location. So the UMC, the Unified Memory Controller, also known as the IMC, the integrated memory controller. These terms are interchangeable. That is where the U in the U clock comes from. It stands for the Unified Memory Controller Clock. So that is the U clock. So that is the clock that is in the I/O die that connects to your dual channel DDR5. But the F clock is the fabric clock. So that one always runs at like 2 gigahertz. So the thing is, at 8,000, remember what I said, at 8,000, we'll just say, I'll just type them in. So if we're at 8,000 megahertz, I want to say megatransfers, on the RAM, this is the DDR, your mem clock is actually 4,000. Does that make sense? Does everybody understand DDR, double data rate? Double data rate is double 4,000. That's why it's 8,000. But the true clock is actually 4,000. So that, because can you imagine, like RAM doesn't actually run at 8 gigahertz, guys. I'm just clarifying this for people that are new to memory overclocking. The RAM speed is always half of the advertised. So if you buy a kit of memory that says 6,000 megahertz on the box, that means the RAM is rated to run a memory clock of 3 gigahertz. Half of 6,000 is 3,000. So again, if we're running 8,000 megahertz on the memory, it's actually 4,000 megahertz on the memory. So this is M clock. M clock exists here. It's actually labeled. This is M clock. Have you looked at the difference between Zen 4 and Zen 4C? Yeah, the only difference is the Zen 4Cs, they're smaller because they have less cache. There's less like L3 and stuff like that. But they're pretty much the same architecturally. So the Unified Memory Controller, this one, U-Clock, this one in Gear 1, these two, U-Clock and Mem-Clock, run the exact same speed. But in Gear 2 mode, U-Clock runs at half. So if we are to say, if we are in Gear 1, U-Clock equals Mem-Clock. Gear 2, U-Clock equals half Mem-Clock. So this is like a very important concept, because what this means is that if you run your U-Clock, your IMC clock, at half of the Mem-Clock, now what you want to try to do is you want to try to get U-Clock to be as close to the F-Clock as possible, so that they can be synchronized. Because when they're not synchronized, here's what a lot of people don't know, or they don't understand internally what's going on with the processor. When U-Clock and F-Clock are not equal, when they're out of phase with each other, or they're not synced with each other, there is a synchronization component in the I/O die, actually in the exact middle of the die. There is a synchronization device. I forget what it's called. It says it's IFO. I forget what it stands for. I used to know what it stands for, but you know how it is with all these acronyms. You can only memorize so many of them before you start forgetting others. So anyway, the synchronizer in the fabric inside the IMC, or not the IMC, it's actually in the I/O die, but it's part of the fabric. This device is kind of like a divider that basically ensures that the data that is sent through the fabric to the IMC doesn't get basically screwed up because the two clocks are different. Does that make sense? Because you got F clock running at 2 gigahertz, and you got U clock running at something that is like half of the mem clock, or equal to the mem clock, meaning it is basically not synchronized with the F clock, unlike how it was on Zen 3 and basically the older Ryzen CPUs. So that component in the I/O die is responsible for making sure that the data is not corrupted or not messed up in terms of its transmit and receive intervals. So that's what that does. It's a synchronizer is what it is, because the two clocks are different. But if you run the RAM at, if you run the U clock, or I guess let's say if you run the RAM at 8,000 megahertz DDR5, now your U clock in Gear 2 mode is 2 gigahertz, because half of DDR5 8000 is 4000. That's your mem clock, half of your mem clock, because we're in gear 2 mode, is your U clock. So half of 4000 equals 2000. That's the magic number. U clock at 2 gigahertz is equal to F clock at 2 gigahertz. Therefore, the synchronizer doesn't actually really matter, because now your clocks are the same speed. That is why 8000 megahertz is kind of like the new happy medium, I guess, or like the new upper echelon target for AM5 processors with this new BIOS, because you get synchronization between F clock and U clock. Now it was mentioned in the chat, it performs better at higher frequencies on the memory despite being in gear 2 mode. That is true. That is true. If you go beyond 6000 megahertz on DDR5 on AMD and you're having to leverage gear 2 mode for stability, it's still going to be faster than gear 1 mode. Now, it won't be that much faster than gear 1 mode. Now, clearly, or I guess obviously, if we were capable of running gear 1 mode all the way up, like, you know, just if it wasn't limited, right, by the U clock, then the performance would scale linearly. But because we can't do that, because we have to run, because think about how fast the IMC is running. The IMC was not designed to be a high frequency processor like the cores in the CCD or in the CCX. It wasn't designed to run beyond, it really wasn't designed to run beyond 3 gigahertz. It's supposed to be a 3 gigahertz max IMC. And that is the reason why AMD always says 6000 is the sweet spot, because at 6000 in gear 1 mode, you're at 3000 on your mem clock and you're at 3000 on your U clock. Therefore, you have a 1-to-1 ratio, and 3 gigahertz is kind of the upper maximum that processor, that little component, that component being the unified memory controller, can actually handle. Now, that's pretty impressive for something that's not supposed to be an actual core. So the fact that that thing can actually clock to 3 gigahertz is quite impressive, considering Intel's one can't really do that at all. I mean, that's the reason why you have to do Gear 2 mode on Intel, like, pretty much all the time. So, it's actually quite impressive when you think about it, that you can actually run Gear 1 mode with DDR5, because you can't even do that on Intel at all. So anyway, they clock a lot low. Wait, what are they saying? They are also 16 cores per CCD with 2 CC. Oh, you're talking about the Zen 4C. Yeah, so the Bergamo for the cloud computing. Yeah. Is that going to come to mobile? See, my thing with the Zen 4C, I don't know what the power consumption is on that versus the regular core. I assume it's lower because it's a smaller part. It has less cache, so it uses less energy. But I don't know how it compares directly. Or I guess, in my mind, if they want to put Zen 4C in something other than a server, I think a laptop makes sense. I don't really know if it makes sense to put it into consumer desktop. But I could be wrong. I don't know. You're saying they clock a lot lower. Yeah, to me that sounds like it's meant for a server. Because servers typically, and that's what they put it in, but a server doesn't have to run the cores very high. Because it's so dense. The power envelope is like way higher. So you can't clock things that high in a server. You guys have to remember the power budget too. Because the power budget, so the more you pack cores on something, the lower, like the less the amount of electricity per core. So the cores can only go so fast when you have so many of them. Laptop or consoles, it makes sense. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So anyway, that's kind of the gist of like why 8000 megahertz is the next target. Meaning, so it's like 6000 is a really good number for DDR5, and then 8,000 is a really good number. So in doing all, so now let's talk about Intel again. So in doing all this testing with Intel, I had no idea how random and kind of like how much variance existed out in the field for Intel's IMC. Like the quality of Intel's IMC is all over the place. There are people who can't even get they can't even get above 7,000 or 6,800 on a 13900KS, and then there are others who can do 8,000 plus on a regular 13900K. So there's so much variance, it's kind of ridiculous. PS5 Pro would make sense for Zen 4C. That's an interesting comment. I guess maybe. There's already rumors about what the next PlayStation 5 is, though. Like, there's actually quite a few articles on that. We can probably talk about that in a little bit later. But I was surprised at how little data there was regarding Intel's IMC when it comes to 4 sticks of memory. It's like everyone just decided to just only look at like 2 sticks of 16 gigs for like a 32 gig kit. Man, that's so boring. That's like, who cares? That's like so puny. I mean, you guys have seen how much RAM my PC can consume while streaming and playing like a game at 4K maxed out. It's a lot. So I don't care about like 32 gig of RAM. To me, 32 gigs of RAM is the minimum, honestly. I've been running 64 gigs of RAM since 2019. So to me, 64 is already long in the tooth. So I need to be at like 20. I need to be at like 96 or higher for it to feel like my system is actually, bleeding edge. So I don't care about all this like 8,000 megahertz nonsense. It's like, yeah, it's cool. To me, it's like a one-trick pony. It's like, that's okay, that's cool. But I mean, I'd rather have 128 gigs than like 8 gigahertz on the RAM. Like, okay, big deal. It's like 2 FPS difference. And at 4K, it doesn't even matter. And I play my games at 4K anyway. So, again, the capacity actually matters more than the actual upper frequency. So, that being said, I have been testing AMD, and I did a PC build video recently featuring these G-Skill Trident Z5 RGB. So this is Intel XMP memory, for those wondering. It's not the Z5 Neos. Trident Z5 Neos is the AMD Expo memory from G-Skill. But the Trident Z5 RGB, I mean, the Neos also have RGB, but they've got like a different color rainbow to them versus the Z5. So these G-Skill, the reason why I tested these is because these are 2 sticks of 48. So this box is 2 sticks of 48. So this is a 96 gigabyte kit at 6400 cast latency 32 at 1.35 volts. So this is actually very good RAM. This is probably the best RAM on the market right now. And because I literally took one look at it, I'm like, okay, cast latency 32, 39, 39, 102 at 1.35 volts, 6400. This is so obvious that this is SK Hynix, because up until now, all the like super high dense, like 48 gig DIMMs, 24 gig DIMMs, all of that stuff was Micron only. Like, you couldn't get Samsung or Hynix with DIMMs greater than 32 gigs per DIMM. So when I saw this memory, and I saw the cast latency, because you guys know I've taught like on multiple streams now how to tell if a memory kit is Hynix versus Samsung versus Micron. So when I saw this stuff, I'm like, wait a minute, this is 96 gigabytes at 6400 CL 32, 39, 39. As soon as I saw 32, 39, 1.35 on the voltage, I immediately knew, without a doubt in my mind, without even looking online, I knew it was Hynix. I knew in my heart, I trusted my heart, it's Hynix memory. There's no way that it's going to be Micron memory. Well, I mean, it's not going to be Micron memory because it's 6400 megahertz. So obviously it's not Micron. But there's no way that it's going to be crappy Samsung memory because it's CL3239. So I was so confident. I just went into Micro Center. I'm like, I want this RAM, and I want like both, because they only had two. They literally only had two in stock. The only other 96 gigabyte kit that Micro Center had was a Corsair Vengeance RGB for like 5600 megahertz. So that I knew was Micron. I looked at it, cast latency 40, 40, 40, 77. Immediately I knew that was Micron. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want that Corsair stuff. That stuff's Corsair, that's garbage. I want that G-Skill good stuff, 6400, 96 gigabytes. Intel XMP to go with my 7950X 3D. So I got it. I built it with the Tai-Chi, or not the Tai-Chi, I built it with the X670E Steel Legend from ASRock because ASRock was the only motherboard brand that had the beta BIOS for the Agisa 1007B. So I built that system. That system's fast. That's all I can say. Immediately, it posts to 5600 out of the box. Out of the box, it posted all 96 gigs at 5600 on first boot. After that, I load XMP 6400. ASRock trains it. Bam, 6400. Gear 2 mode, 100% stable. Right out of the box. Nothing. It's Intel memory on an AMD platform, 100% stable. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to be running in the main system. So I will probably test all 4 sticks in the AMD system in a future video. But right now, I'm running one of these in my X3D build. And the other one is currently in the PC that we are streaming on right now. So I'm actually running 96 gigabytes at 6400 like right now. On the 7950X on the Gigabyte Aorus Master. So let me pull that up. How do I change this again? There. So there we go. Gear 2 mode, obviously, because we're outside of the 6000, the 1-to-1 ratio max. Now, one thing worth noting about this is when I loaded the XMP profile on ASRock defaulted to Gear 2. When I loaded the profile, it trained to Gear 2. So the U clock ended up going to 1600 right off the bat on ASRock. Now on Gigabyte, now I may need to go back and test Gear 1 because maybe I have a golden chip on my 7950X. But my 7950X 3D in the ASRock Steel Legend, the ASRock BIOS trained it to Gear 2 mode. And then went into Windows and it was 100% stable. When I loaded the same exact profile, same exact memory kit on the 7950X, as you guys can see here, on the 7950X, Gigabyte actually trained it to Gear 1. So my U-clock was running at 3.2 gigahertz off of the Aorus Master. Now, I didn't want to take the time to test the stability because the stream was coming up. So obviously I'm like, yeah, I'm going to run it in Gear 2 mode. So I manually changed it to Gear 2. Or the Aorus Master retrained, set it up like that, and it's running now. And I assume it's 100% stable because the ASRock one worked totally fine with the X3D. I assume this one should be the same. So the one difference was ASRock actually trained tighter timings than Gigabyte for the primary, but Gigabyte tends to train tighter timings for the secondary timings, the ones that you guys can't see. You have to go in the BIOS to see it, or use like Zen timings. But ASRock trained 32, 38, 38, 102 versus, and then 144 for TRC, but the Gigabyte did the default. It did 3939 which is actually the exact same. It's actually the kit's rated settings. And I'm doing all of this with only 1.18 on the VSOC. So all those people that were worrying about, oh, it's going to burn up the CPU or the CPU is going to swell up and explode, all that nonsense. No, we're doing 6400 right now at 1.18 volts on the SoC. So we're not even close to 1.3. I set 1.2. It did like 1.18. So rock solid stable, and we're running 96 gigs. So the next test will be to test 192 gigabytes. So we're going to try the 4 DIMM challenge, just like we did on Intel the other day, and see what we can do with the AMD system. So with this new BIOS, supposedly, I'm hoping I can do 5200. If I can do 5200, I'm not expecting it to be stable at 5200. And at that speed, I'd rather just, I don't know, Gear 2 is probably going to hurt the performance. If you do Gear 2 at like 5200, that's going to be kind of slow. But I mean, I'm running Gear 2 on Intel right now at 4800. So that's like really slow. And that's kind of all I have to work with on that. So, yeah, we'll see what we can do with AMD, because the new BIOS it's supposed to have made it like a whole lot better, but I think much of that is probably going to be down to the inner workings of how they've changed Gear 2, because Gear 2 works a lot better now on AMD than it did like before the last BIOS update. So that's the main thing that I have to say there. So that's pretty much going to round up the discussion on the DDR5, unless anybody had any questions. There was a question at the beginning of the chat. Let me see, make sure I answered that. So is 4x8 on an AMD system a good idea, or going with 2x16 would be a better idea? So the answer is 2x16 is a better choice than 4x8. 4x8 is actually only 32 gigs of RAM. Yeah, so definitely, yeah, you'd want to definitely aim for 2x16, or even 2x32 would even be better, but that's the minimum that I would do, personally. But yeah, like, to answer your question, always go for 2 sticks. What do you think of that RAM? Oh, is it in the Discord? I gotta go back and look. Where is it? Oh, it's in the chat. You bought Team Group kit of $6,000, $57 with. Oh wait, did you build an X3D system? Since you're buying anytime somebody says they're buying 6,000 megahertz DDR5, I always assume it's an AMD system or an AM5 system, because most of the Expo kits are 6,000. So you bought Team Group. Let me see. Let me find it. Team Group. Oh, it's for a future build. 6,000. DDR5. 38. Well, I can tell you right now, just by looking at that RAM, just by looking at what you wrote in the chat, that's Samsung memory, just FYI. So I don't... It's not great, to be honest, just because it's Samsung. But you got it for like, you said $57? It's okay. It's not in stock anywhere, from what I can tell. It's not in stock on Newegg. Yeah, just looking at that's Samsung memory, just so you know. Just FYI, it's Samsung. But yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's kind of like yeah, I see it. It's Valkyrie Edition. It's like the memory that they gave out for free at Micro Center a few months ago. The only difference is the timing. I've got the free RAM right here so I've got this stuff. It is, where is it at? So this is the kit from hold on, where's my Yeah, this is the kit from Micro Center that they gave for free. So this stuff, like yours, is actually a little bit slower, or it's a little bit looser than the one from Micro Center. So the one from Micro Center is 36, 36, 36, 90. Oh, okay, so you've got a better, is that TRAS? I think you got a better TRAS. Yours is probably, yours probably has better sub timings, if I had to guess. Yeah, the TRAS on the free RAM from Micro Center is 96 at 1.35 volts. And what was yours? Yours was 1.25. So yours is actually better because it's 1.25. Even though the primary timings are a little bit slower. No, that looks like Samsung memory. You said you looked it up and was told. Who said it was Hynix? That totally looks like Samsung memory to me. You can tell by the timings, just by looking at the primary timing. If the first two numbers are the same number, it's Samsung. And yours is, okay, yours is different from the one that I found on Newegg. The one that I found on Newegg is a... Here, let me bring that up. Let me go back. Wait, what? Oh. I hate when it does that. Every time I share, like, CPU-Z or something small, it always stretches the window. Anyway, this is, why is it like that? It's supposed to be... There we go. This is what I pulled up on Newegg. This is a 64 gig kit, but it's the same. It's just dual rank. Flat timings is Samsung. Yeah, this is Samsung memory. So the way you can tell is you just look at these two numbers. If the first number and the second number in the primary timings are equal, it's Samsung memory. Assuming it's not Micron. Now, the reason why it's not Micron, because Micron also has, you know, the first and the second number are equal, but Micron doesn't go up to 6,000, typically, as far as I know. Micron is usually topping out at 5,600 by today. So Micron can do up to 56. Anything that's higher than 56, but has flat timings like 38, 38, 38, that's a dead giveaway that it's Samsung. So I literally have two different free kits of memory from Micro Center. They're both AMD Expo Flare X5 from G-Skill. One of them is a 6000, the one that I just told you, 6000 CL 36, 36, 36, 96 at 1.35 volts. This is Samsung memory. I have personally used it with the Intel 13th gen. It's Samsung memory. This other kit from Micro Center, also free. This one is 5600. So this is a 32 gig 5600 kit. CL 36, 36, 36, 89 at 1.2 volts. This is also Samsung memory. So bottom line is every kit of memory that I have ever seen that has flat timings where the first two numbers are the same, it's always Samsung. Otherwise, it's Micron. The other kit of memory, I don't have the box with me right here, but I have a Corsair Vengeance kit that is rated for, it's a 64 gig kit. Yeah, it's the same, and this is Samsung memory. So, the Corsair Vengeance kit that I have that's rated for 5200 megahertz, that one has the typical JEDEC timings. It's on an XMP profile, but it's literally JEDEC. It's literally 40, 40, 40, 77 at 1.2 or 1.25 volts. That stuff is Micron. So Micron's typically, you know, like your 40, 40, 40, 77. Samsung could also be that, but then it's just copying JEDEC on its XMP or its Expo profile. And then, like, if it's 36, 36, 36, or 38, 38, 38, that's all Samsung, typically. If it's 6,000 or higher. So, yeah. By comparison, the RAM that I have put in the Intel system, the G-Skill Ripjaws S5, this stuff is rated for 5600 CL 30, 3689 1.25 volts. This stuff is Hynix. This is Hynix. And then the new RAM that I tested with AMD is obviously Hynix. This is 6400, 32, 39, 39, 102, 1.35 volts. I knew in my heart. I didn't have to look it up online. I didn't have to do anything. I just trusted my gut feeling, and my gut feeling told me this is Hynix memory, so I bought it because this is extremely expensive memory, and sure enough, it was Hynix memory. So, without even checking. It's called blind, well, I don't want to say blind faith, but it's trusting your instincts. Trusting your instincts. When in reality, it's like logically understanding how to tell the difference between Samsung and Hynix just by looking at the timings. So, yeah. But most likely this memory that you got is Samsung memory. Samsung, it's very, very common to be 6,000 with flat timings like that. Hey, Sidri. How's it going? You just missed the discussion on RAM overclock. Well, not really RAM overclocking. It's more so like how to run 128 gigabytes of memory and what's the maximum expected speeds on the RAM. So we just went over all of that. So I guess just to summarize that, and then we'll move on to the next discussion, which is probably going to be Starfield and then the 4090 Ti. Because we don't really need to talk about Thunderbolt because I already kind of mentioned it. But basically, in general, in conclusion, 4 DIMMs on Intel. Actually, hold on. I got something I can share here. This will probably clarify things. It's gonna blind everybody because it's gonna make the screen really bright. Yeah, this is gonna blind everybody. So I apologize. Wait, hold on. Is there a way for me to like force the? Is there a way for me to force the dark theme? How do I force it? Okay, I can force it so people won't get blind. All right. Okay. So check this out. Oh, what do you think of the image in Discord? Might be worth a gamble. If Hynix, you'll get a slate. I don't know who that is, and I don't know what their sources are. I don't know because. Okay, what I would suggest you do, just look it up in the QVL for some of the motherboards and see what the QVL says. I would trust the QVL if they're claiming that the QVL says it's Hynix, but keep in mind that sometimes whoever's labeling that in the QVL might mistype it. They might mislabel it, but I have my intuition tells me that it's Samsung, just by looking at it. Samsung is very, very common at 6,000 megahertz. Like if you want to avoid Samsung, you typically want to buy like a 6400 kit or a 6200 kit, or maybe a 5600 kit that has CL28 or CL30 as the first number, and the second number can be something looser than that. But anyway, I still say it's Samsung. Yeah, that to me looks like Samsung memory. All exact timings of voltage. No, that doesn't sound right. Okay, we can. Okay, you know what? Let's look it up. Let's look it up. Let's find. Let's look it up on Aorus's website. Support, memory support. This is Team Force. They don't even have them on here. Oh, great. Wow. Oh, there they are. Team Group. Team Group, 6,000. Capacity, 16. Do they say who the manufacturer is? Hey, they're saying Hynix. Hynix. I don't... Okay, this one looks like Hynix. This one looks like Hynix. This... I don't know how this is Hynix. I think this is a mislabel. Did the person say that they tested it in their motherboard? They did not. They're just saying the QVL says Hynix. Okay, so now we have to go look at somebody else. Let's look at ASRock. ASRock. QVL. ASRock's QVL is horrible. What is this? Why is it like a big long list? Team group. FF3D532. G6000. It's not even on the list. The 6000 kit, that's not on the list. So, okay, look what's here. 6400, Team Group 6400 is on the ASRock's list, and they say the Hynix. That's because it's 6400. I'm pretty sure that this kit is something other than like 3838. And this one might be a mistype. These look like... Oh, you know what? Maybe it's some, like, weird... Yeah, okay, like Sid's saying that it could be a really old batch. That's true. That could be, like, a really, really old batch. Like, from the batch of memory back when DDR5 was, like, $800 when 12th gen came out. Back in, like, late 2021. Because see, right here... This stuff says Hynix, Hynix, Hynix. But look at this. This is the real deal Hynix. This stuff is the real deal. Is everybody seeing my screen? Why does it keep on? Oh. This is the real deal because this one is Hynix M. And it's 30, 36, 36. Hynix M. So I guess this generic, whatever this is, Hynix, has flat timings like Samsung. Although I still suspect that... I have a suspicion that it's Samsung. But yeah, it could be like the really old... DDR5 from like way back in 2021 or something. So yeah, cause see, like I'll tell you, like all the Hynix memory that I have is all Hynix M die. My rip jaws that are in the Intel system, this is like old school. This stuff was purchased back in 2022, back when AMD launched Zen 4. And this is Hynix M die. And then the 48 gig DIMM, so the 96 gig, 192 gig kit, this stuff is also Hynix M die. So maybe you do have Hynix memory, but it's I don't know what it will be able to overclock to, but whatever. I mean, you'll be able to do it at 6000, it's fine. It'll be nice for them to put when they tested it. Yeah, this is kind of... I guess it's Hynix, because Gigabyte claims it's Hynix. Now, ASRock doesn't even list that RAM, so who knows? And it could still end up being Samsung. Gigabyte could also just, like, label it wrong. It's not like that would be the first for them to do that, but yeah. That's a possibility also. But it could be some weird Hynix that's not M die or A die or whatever. So that's possible too. But yeah, if you do end up getting the memory, if you do test it, like let me know who actually is the vendor, because now I'm actually curious, because I haven't encountered any of this super old Hynix stuff from like the first couple of batches of DDR5. Okay. So let me go back. Oh, not there. Okay, so Team Group Delta RGB. Yeah, the BIOS will tell you what it is. Just run Typhoon and it'll tell you. Well, it's for a future build. He doesn't have a DDR5 system right now. He just got the RAM for cheap, for $57. So he can't actually verify who the OEM is. It could be some really old Hynix stuff. CPU-Z does tell you. Yeah, CPU-Z can tell you also. Okay. But anyway, so what I wanted to show here is this. So it took me a while to find this. So this is This is the 13th gen Intel Core data sheet. And Windows just decided to install Microsoft Office updates. Thank you, Windows, for doing that while I'm live. That's really annoying. Okay, so datasheet volume 1. At least it didn't restart my computer while it was live. So that's good, because it's done that a couple of times. That's really annoying. Okay, supporting 13th gen Intel Core processors. So it took me a long time to find this info. Wait, what? Okay. So this is... Intel kept this well hidden. It was hard to find this. So this is the DDR support matrix table for the 13th generation. So on the left, we have DDR4. We're going to ignore that. We're going to look at the DDR5. So according to Intel's official specifications, if you are running 1 DIMM per channel, so this one means 2 sticks of memory. Where's my Expo kit? Right here, this stuff. So if you're running 2 sticks of memory, the maximum for single rank on UDIMM is 5600. This is the number that they show on the official Intel Arc. And when I say Intel Arc, I'm not talking about the GPU. I'm not talking about ARC. I'm talking about ARK. Intel Arc's archive page for all their processors. 5600 megahertz is the magic number for the 13th generation that they list in their marketing material. So, and this is where they're pulling that. And that means 1 single rank, single DIMM per channel. That means what I'm holding right here is a prime example of that. My AMD Expo Samsung memory that was free from Micro Center is an example of 5600 single rank DIMMs. So according to Intel, this is officially guaranteed to work per Intel at its rated speed. Out of the box, even though it's AMD memory. Okay, or it's Expo memory. Now, if we are running dual rank would be what I currently have installed in the Intel PC right now. That's 2 ranks. Intel claims that the maximum speed on a 13th generation processor is 5200 megatransfers, which is basically the same as AMD's rated maximum of 5200 megatransfers per second on a UDIMM. So that would be my G.Skill Ripjaws S5, which I currently don't have in the box. So that is my 64 gigabyte kit. So these 5600 is the typical speed for 16 gigs or 32 gig kits. 5200 is going to be the typical speed for a 64 gigabyte kit. Now, in my case, I can tell you guys with confidence, I have been running 4 sticks of single rank in my Intel system basically since I got it, or since I built it back in November. So I've been running that since November of last year with all this AMD Expo memory for all 4 sticks at 5600. Not because Intel said 5600 is the maximum, but because one of these kits does 5600, the other one does 6000. They're both Samsung, so I run them at the lowest common denominator, which is 5600. So I've been running 64 gigs across 4 sticks of 16, 4x16 on Intel, no problem, at the rated Expo profile speed. Now here's where things get interesting. This is so that's stuff that I already knew. Now here's the stuff that's news to me. So now let's bump it up to 2 DIMMs per channel. So this is going to be 4 sticks of memory. 4 sticks of memory, 2 DIMMs, 2 single rank DIMMs per channel. Intel claims the maximum you can do is 4000. Now, I have been lucky. My IMC has been able to handle 5600 for single rank 4 DIMMs. I can actually do 5600, even though Intel claims that you're only officially allowed to get or expected to get 4,000 megahertz. Now, I bumped it all the way up to 128 gigs. So now we're running 2 rank, 2 DIMMs. So we're running 4 sticks, 32 gigs each. So that's 128 gigs. That's the full maximum load. Now we're pulling the 18-wheeler. We're asking the 1300K to tow that 18-wheeler into the games. And Intel claims at that capacity, you're allowed to do 3600. Well, what's another processor brand that everybody knows the official spec is 3600 when running dual channel or dual rank 2 DIMM per channel configurations? Well, AMD. So Zen 4 also is certified to do 3600 on DDR5 when you're running 4 sticks of memory and 2 ranks per DIMM. So you can think of that as almost like a pseudo octa channel configuration. I wonder if I can overclock my RAM to 8000. That will be my Saturday experiment. Yeah, I plan to try to play around with that. The problem is I don't have Hynix DIMMs that are 16 gigs each. I only have Samsung, unfortunately, and I don't really know how well the Samsung will be able to overclock beyond 6000. But I might play around with it in a future video. Who knows? But anyway, anything beyond 3600 on Intel or AMD is considered an overclock when you're running 128 gigs. So in my case, I'm actually, in Intel and AMD's eyes, I should be grateful to them that they have graced my CPU with an IMC that can do a measly 4800 megahertz across all 4 DIMMs in a 128 gigabyte configuration. So I don't know how I feel about that, but finding this document and reading this and finally learning what the maximum supported speed on Intel is, now I don't feel so bad that I can only do 4800. So on 4 sticks of dual rank, because that's actually what matters to me. So you need a new motherboard and CPU. Yeah, we can actually talk about that if you guys want to talk about builds. Oh, fun fact, I finally got rid, well, not got rid of, but like I changed my Linux PC. I changed my Linux Ubuntu PC over to Zen 4. So you guys remember I had a 7700X sitting around on a shelf doing nothing, and I was using a 3800X with an X370 Crosshair 6 Hero from Asus. So that PC, I have now kind of upgraded it to an AM5 platform. So the Gigabyte X670 Aorus Elite, that is paired with the 7700X, and that is using the Micron, the 64 gigabytes of Micron Corsair Vengeance 5200 megahertz on AM5. So that is my Linux PC now, paired up with a 6900 XT. And that's a pretty nice upgrade for that system. So the 7950 X3D PC, so this one is now paired up with the ASRock X670E Steel Legend with 96 gigabytes of Intel Expo G-Skill Trident Z5 at 6400 megahertz Gear 2 mode. So that's basically what I'm running on that. So that's the benchmark PC, and then the PC that we're streaming on right now is a 7950X with the other set of 96 gigabytes of memory. So you talked to someone that got Stable Diffusion to work on their 700 XT with Ubuntu. I would be very interested in learning how they managed to do that, because I was wanting to do that too. I was wanting to swap the 6900 XT for the 7900 XT for Ubuntu for Stable Diffusion. But yeah, it actually runs really good. The 6900 XT, I was going to ask you, do you know if the Radeon 7 or like the Vega, the GCN GPUs work with Stable Diffusion on ROCm? Because when I looked up in AMD's documentation for ROCm, according to the documentation, only Radeon 7 is like supposedly Radeon 7 is the only officially supported GPU with ROCm like 5.6 or 5.5. I have to go back and look at the version. But according to the document, like 69 RDNA 2 was not listed. They listed a bunch of professional cards that I don't have, and then they listed like Radeon 7, which I do have. So I was curious because if Radeon 7 is officially supported, maybe it performs better with Stable Diffusion than the 6900 XT. I highly doubt it because the 6900 XT just is better in terms of like teraflops and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. Only RDNA 2 and 3 are supported from what I was told. I was told that only RDNA 2 was supposed to be supported and they were going to add RDNA 3. But it's not in the official, it's not in the documentation. So I have no idea. I mean, I could always just like plug in I could like swap my GPU to the 7900 XT and see if it works. But I haven't bothered to do that. So I did bring back out the 3090 Ti, and I paired up the 3090 Ti with the 7950X 3D, and I got Stable Diffusion working on that PC. And that PC, I mean, it's 3090 Ti, it's good. 7950X 3D is very fast too, so that's a really nice system, but it just uses a lot of power. The 7950X with the 7900 XTX is also really fast in Stable Diffusion. This was from an AMD engineer. Only RDNA 2 and 3. Okay, well, can you ask them, like, when are they going to update their documentation so that people in the public actually know that? Because as far as I can tell, it's not documented anywhere. Like, there's no mention of RDNA 3, at least publicly. Maybe they have it documented somewhere internally, but as far as the public is concerned, no one knows that the RDNA 3 GPUs work with ROCm, because it's not, unless they trial and error them, right? Like, so I mean, and I can do that, but I'd like to know officially if it's supposed to work before I go and like start tearing apart my system and swapping components out. Did you hear about the 3080 Ti 20 gig? No, I did not hear about that. Is that supposed to be some GPU that never happened? Or like an engineering sample or something? I mean, it's obviously not going to happen now. But yeah, I'm curious to know about that. I need to join like these AMD Discords that you're talking about. In fact, I need to get in the Intel ones too. I really need to join these. He worked with the Radeon team to get it to work. Yeah. Well, I mean, they need to update their documents. The documentation for ROCm is so outdated, or it's just not like, it's not current. Hence it's outdated. Okay, so yeah, with some engineering sample. The 4090 Ti is the thing I want to touch on briefly, because Matt had mentioned like getting rid of the 4080 to buy a 4090. So a couple things to talk about Nvidia real quick. So Nvidia reportedly, this is very disappointing if this is true. I doubt that this is true, but I could be wrong because Nvidia has become so unpredictable this year. 2 GB memory modules. Wait, what? 3080 Ti 20 GB would just be a 3080 Ti with 320-bit bus instead of a 384-bit bus. The DDR5, is Corsair the only one with the... No, they're not. There's a bunch. There's a whole bunch. There's way more than Corsair. There's G-Skill. There's Team Group. There's A-Data. There's like way more. There's Kingston. I don't know about Patriot. I haven't heard about Patriot in a while. But anyway, probably not Micron though, or not Crucial. So Ballistics is not going to be one. So if this is true, I'm going to be very disappointed because I've been waiting for this GPU pretty much all year. So if Nvidia goes and like axes the 4090 Ti, that's going to make me hate them or dislike them even more than most people already do. So I'm going to be very annoyed if this is true, if they really axed the 4090 Ti, because I've been waiting for the 4090 Ti all year long, and for them to just be like reportedly say we're canceling it, or we're not going to build it because we're selling enough 4090s anyway, so who cares. But I'll be disappointed. I doubt it. I think they're going to launch this thing. What I could see happening is they don't launch this until early next year, because that would be no different from what they did with the 3090 Ti. The 40 yeah, and you know what was also 10% faster? You know what was 10% faster than a 3090? A 3090 Ti. So the 3090 Ti came out in March of last year. The 3090 came out in, I think, October of 2020. Which means a whole year and a half, pretty much, had gone by between the launch of the 3090 and the 3090 Ti. So if they axe it, I don't think they're going to axe it. What I think this probably means is that they're probably not going to launch one this year, or maybe in their current fiscal year, which means we could see the 4090 Ti in Q1 of next year. So, and that would make sense, because that would match how they did 3090 Ti. The only problem with launching this next year is if they do that, I don't think people are going to want this, because I think pretty much everybody who pays attention to Nvidia knows that the 3090 Ti was one of the shortest lived GPUs of that generation, because it was the very last GPU to launch from the Ampere architecture, and it was within a year of the Ada launch, aka the 4090 launch. So 3090 Ti was March 2022, 4090 was October 2022. So we're talking an 8-month gap between the 3090 Ti launch and the 4090 launch. So if they launch the 4090 Ti in Q1 of next year, I don't know how well it will sell. I don't think they'll make that many of them, and I don't think they'll sell that many of them, because I think a lot of people will be waiting for the 5090, which is supposed to come out at the end of next year. So that's my final thoughts on that. I do think that they do need to launch one of these, and just like they do need to launch a 4080 Ti, because why would they have 4070 Ti, 4060 Ti at the mid-range and low entry level, but then they don't have like anything, they don't have a Ti in their upper, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that, to me, that doesn't make any sense for them to completely cancel this, despite the fact that we've seen the leaked images of the cooler for this thing. So I don't think it's fully canceled. I think it'll, worst case, it shows up in like March of next year, and then it basically gets eclipsed by the 5090 in like half a year after it launches, or something like that. That's what I think will happen. So it's kind of annoying, but whatever. Nvidia's the reason why Nvidia literally doesn't care is because they could potentially generate $300 billion in revenue from AI by 2027. So literally within the next 4 years, they can make $300 billion just from AI. So it's like, okay, gamers, we don't really, you can complain all you want. You can say that we're the villain. Who cares? You're still going to buy our stuff anyway, because we have DLSS 2 and 3, and you guys, for some reason, some percentage of you like ray tracing, so you're still going to buy our stuff regardless. even though you think we're evil. So, yeah. They can do whatever they want, pretty much. The AI hype has uplifted Nvidia to the trillion-dollar club, and this is only the beginning. 4090, yeah, so Vijay Rakesh, an analyst from Mizuho Financial Group, has predicted a 20% increase in Nvidia stock target price, reaching $530. It is important to know. Man, at this rate, forget about Tesla. Nvidia's like the new Tesla stock. Nvidia had a huge run-up last year to like $700 something. Then they did a 4-for-1 split, went back down because of the split, and now according to this one guy, they're like going back up to 530. I mean, that's his predicted target. So they're doing another run-up because of AI. So it's like Nvidia had a run-up because of crypto. Then they did a split. Then crypto conveniently crashed, strangely enough. And now it's like AI is like coming in and lifting their wave up again. So, time to short Nvidia stock. I don't know who's gonna be. I don't know who's gonna dare attempt that. That's like a really that's like living life on the edge is what that is. So, but see, they're going back up. Like, this is crazy. They're going up, and the funny thing is, when Nvidia goes up, AMD also goes up. See, that's what's funny. Like, the problem is when AMD and Nvidia go up, Intel goes down. It's like Intel's like, why can't I be in the club too, guys? Like, the problem is Intel's just kind of Intel has a wide moat, financially speaking. For those that don't know what I'm referring to, never mind. You can kind of like skip this part of the stream, I guess. Once this is edited, I'll put timestamps in it. But anyway, and Intel has a wide moat. They're a wide moat company financially, so that means that they can weather a lot of like weird ups and downs and volatility in the market because they have a large market cap. The company's really old. They've been around, so there's kind of an expectation that Intel basically has their shareholders have to vote on stuff that they want to do. So it's really, really slow to make some significant changes to Intel's corporate strategy. If Nvidia's not careful, someday Nvidia will end up becoming just as big as Intel, and they'll become slow, and they'll have a wide moat, so they'll be isolated from market volatility. But then you won't have such a thing like shorting or massive run-ups and all this stuff. Like, Nvidia will be a lot more isolated from those sort of things. Like, if you guys remember GME, remember AMC and GME stock, the meme stocks back in the day? Like, the reason why the Wall Street Bets Reddit group was able to do what they were able to do with GME and AMC and whatever else they did, it's because those companies were literally on their last legs, and they didn't have this like walled garden, this fortress that protects them from like market volatility, external forces. Intel has a lot of that. So if someone wants to go in like short Intel, they're going to fail. Like, they can bring all their buddies, they can bring like whatever, like 2,000 plus people. It's not going to do anything because the market capitalization is too big, it's too heavy. You can't lift it. You know what I'm saying? It's just too heavy. Nvidia is getting there. Nvidia's gotten to the point where they did a 4-for-1 split last year when they were up at like $700 something. I forget what the final number was before the split. But Nvidia already had a 4-for-1 split. That means that their stock is far more saturated than it was a year ago. So that means if somebody wanted to short Nvidia, good luck trying, because it's going to be way, way harder to do than it was a year ago. And with the way things are, I can see this going to like $700 again, and then they decide to do something like a 2-for-1 split or a 3-for-1 split or whatever they decide to do. If they do another split, And that's going to further make it harder to do something like a short or any kind of weird thing with the options. You know what I'm saying? So the derivatives market is not really going to be a thing for Nvidia stock because there's too much positive momentum right now with this company's stock. So this is not meant to be any financial advice at all. I'm just telling it like how I see it in terms of how Nvidia's market capitalization compares to a larger company like Intel or an older company like Intel or even AMD for that matter. But yeah, like it's one of those things. It's just riding the success of the AI wave, and I don't know when or if and when that decides to slow down. It will. I mean, these sort of things always happen. I mean, go look at crypto. People were saying that crypto was going to go up forever, and you would never be able to buy a GPU again at a normal price. Boy, were they wrong. So, I mean, the same thing's going to happen with the AI. It just kind of depends on when. I think ultimately what needs to happen to kind of reel this in, you need more competition in the AI space. You need AMD's MI Instinct accelerators. You need AMD ROCm to really start like doing stuff on Windows. You need a lot of like enterprise customers and startups to basically buy from other suppliers for AI accelerator workloads. So we kind of need to topple CUDA, or we need some Chinese companies. Some Chinese companies need to basically steal all of Nvidia's IP. Now, I'm not saying that they should do that. I don't want them to do that, but I'm saying like if that actually happened, and if they developed like a reverse engineered whatever that works with the CUDA stuff, and they just make that instead of like trying to develop ROCm from scratch, then that could be a thing too. Obviously, there's going to be a bunch of lawsuits if that were to happen. But like the Chinese government would back the Chinese companies over Nvidia, so it's like good luck trying to win that court case. You know what I'm saying? So like stuff like that could happen, and that could slow them down, and that could drop the demand for their stock in terms of the investors and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of things at play here that could slow this down for them. And I'm sure Jensen and the ELT over at Nvidia, they probably are well aware of these different risk factors that could impact them negatively. But it's certainly not going to have anything to do with gamers and the GeForce brand. Like that and Radeon, that's not going to do anything. You need Intel as well. I mean, I guess they're just so far behind. I mean, realistically, we're more likely to see some Chinese startup companies like catch Nvidia faster than Intel at this rate. Because here's the thing that some people don't know. Like, do you guys know that? Do you remember when the U.S. government basically, there was an article, I remember we talked about this article like a few months ago. It was earlier this year. The U.S. government basically, I think it was like a sanction thing against China. They basically forbade Nvidia and AMD from selling their top-end server-grade AI accelerator GPUs to Chinese companies because the U.S. government thought that like they're gonna make China be able to make like giant mechs from Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon, and they'll have like a giant army of Gundams and like Power Ranger Megazords that can like destroy the US, like that kind of stuff. Like that's probably what the politicians were thinking. So they're like, no, you can't sell these GPUs to Chinese companies anymore. But you guys know what Nvidia did. Nvidia was like, okay, we can't sell anything that says Ripjaws on it anymore. So what we'll do is let's scratch that out. Okay, we'll sell it with this label. It's called Flare X now. So the Americans and everybody else gets Ripjaws. The Chinese market gets Flare X. Okay, let's do that. Yeah, let's do that. And that got through. That went through customs just fine. And they continued to sell all their stuff like nothing was wrong. Nothing happened. And that's how they got away with it. So, hence why the AI boom took off after they did that. So, On Intel Arc and AMD. Okay, wait, what are we saying? For AI-based API alternatives to CUDA that Intel has, oh, that's what you mean. An alternative to CUDA. What is Intel's alternative to CUDA? Because we all know AMD has ROCm. I guess if I had to guess what Intel's is, I would say it's simply Microsoft DirectML. I mean, on Windows today, you can't use ROCm with AMD GPUs on Windows. You have to go on Linux if you want to do that. So, or you have to run it in some kind of containerized thing, like a Docker. You have to run it in Docker or whatever. But anyway, the point is, on Windows, you can run Stable Diffusion on Windows with an AMD GPU without ROCm today. I've done it. I run it like a few weeks ago. I was testing it and playing around with the different ways to get Stable Diffusion working on an AMD card, and it works totally fine. It's fast with a 7900 XTX. And the way it works is not because of ROCm. It's because of Microsoft's DirectML. So there's a fork for Automatic 1111 that utilizes Microsoft DirectML, and that actually works. So, and it works really well with the RDNA 3. It's also only comma D-line only interface for ROCm currently. What do you mean for Stable Diffusion? No, I mean you can do Automatic 1111. You can run the web UI on Linux. It works. It works. You just have it running in ROCm. ROCm's running on the underlay like CUDA, and it works. I mean, if you're talking like Stable Diffusion, you can run the web UI on Linux. I've tested it on Ubuntu. It works. It works with the 6900 XT. I might have to do a video about that because I don't think there's a lot of videos showcasing how to install that on Linux. I was thinking of doing a video on how to install Stable Diffusion for Windows with AMD, but there's already a decent number of videos on YouTube that show how to do that. So my video would just be redundant at that point. But there isn't a lot of info on Linux, so maybe I'll do a Linux video. AMD GPUs that have ROCm support? Where are you pulling that? Where did you get that screenshot from? And where's the document that says this? Because I can't find an official document that actually lists all those GPUs. When I look up, hold on, where is the... Okay, hold on. Let me show you what I'm looking at here. I don't need this anymore. So, this is what I have looked at. Wait, am I sharing it? Yeah. So, AMD ROCm 5.6, GPU support and OS compatibility. So, check this out. Here are the different versions. So, Red Hat, Ubuntu. So, I'm running this one. Yeah, I think this one. And the right here. So this is what they have on their official website. These are the AMD Instinct accelerators. So all the CDNA 2 and then GCN 5.1, 5.0. But look at this. So the Radeon Pro, the W6800, which is an RDNA 2 GPUs on the list. And then these are on the list. But then under the consumer GPU, the only one that's officially supported right here is the Radeon 7 for ROCm 5.6. So wherever you got that like list of all those GPUs, I would really like to know where you're seeing that. Is that an AMD internal page or something? Because I haven't been able to find anything like publicly that lists that exact same list. Everything that I have researched on like Stable Diffusion on Linux via ROCm, or even just like ROCm in general, You know, like all of it is basically non-existent, or it's anecdotal. Like somebody in a message board is saying that their 6900 XT works or their 6700 XT works, but without anything official, it's kind of hard for me to, you know, basically advertise this as fact because it goes against what they actually show on their public documentation. So that's the one thing I'm going to say on that. So, because oftentimes what I find online is somebody's complaining about how they don't want to buy Nvidia because they don't want to support the CUDA ecosystem because Nvidia's too greedy and all this other nonsense, whatever their opinion is on Nvidia. I mean, it's like, whatever, you know, or it's just too expensive, right? But they want like a 7900 XTX because it has 24 gigabytes of memory and it's the most cost-effective way to get 24 gigabytes of memory. And yeah. So and then they go down the rabbit hole of, well, how do I get it to work with these machine learning type applications? Well, you have to use ROCm. You have to be on Linux. I mean, unless it works on Windows via DirectML, and the only thing that I know of that works right now is Stable Diffusion and the Web UI. So, yeah, I don't really know what the story is in terms of the official support. There's all these unsupported ones here. Let's see. That's another Nvidia article. So there was two. So these are the two Nvidia articles that I wanted to talk about. I guess we can briefly talk about PlayStation 5, and then we can talk about Starfield. Are you skipping the 4090 series purchase entirely? Kind of, because I wanted the 4090 Ti. But at this point, I don't know, because there's this whole story right here. But I don't really know if this is true. I think what this probably means is the 4090 Ti comes out next year. I mean, there was also that rumor that Nvidia's not going to launch any new GPUs until 2025. I also don't believe that. I think that they're going to launch the 50 series flagship in Q4 of next year, which is 2024. So I think that we will be getting a new generation of GPUs next year, at the end of next year. And so the window of the 4090 Ti will be really small. It'll come out like too late, you know? Or it won't come out at all. But the thing is, there's no reason for it to not come out because Nvidia needs to refresh their lines. So the thing is, do you guys remember the 20 series had the Super line and everybody hated it and everybody made fun of it? So I think Nvidia is going to hold back the Ti, the 4090 Ti and the 4080 Ti until later this year or early next year. And they will use the TIs as the refresh, the ADA refresh will be the 4090 Ti and the 4080 Ti. And then later on, the 50 series will replace all of it. So that's what I think they're going to do, because AMD kind of did the same thing, the super duper thing with the 6950 XT, the 6750 XT, and the 6650 XT. You can think of those as like the super RDNA 2 cards. And they launched those last year, May of last year. And guess what? They're still on the market now, because it's only been like a year and a couple of months since those things launched. So that's kind of their excuse. But realistically, like AMD needs to sell more RDNA 2 cards before they can launch their 7800 and their 7700. So that's why things are the way they are. So am I skipping the 4090 entirely? I would like to think so, only because I've been holding out for 4090 Ti. But at this rate, I don't know what I'm going to do. Because it's like, the only thing... Like, how would I benefit from the 4090? How would someone who has a 7900 XTX benefit from a 4090? The difference is like 18%. Is it worth spending $1,600 for 18% more performance? Same exact VRAM. I'm not gaining any more VRAM because they're both 24 gigabytes of VRAM. So what's the benefit to me to spend that much money on another GPU? DLSS 3? What games would I play that actually use DLSS 3? Genshin Impact doesn't use DLSS 3. Is Starfield going to use DLSS 3? I doubt it. See what I'm saying? Hogwarts Legacy doesn't use DLSS 3. Neither does Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Or any of those RPGs that I need to finish. It's hard to plan when they don't show a solid roadmap. I'm always after performance because VR and Flight Simulator demand lots of horsepower, so I would want one. I mean, I guess, like, Microsoft Flight Simulator, that one uses DLSS 3, but, like, that's, like, the one thing, right? Like, what else can benefit that from DLSS 3? Like, I don't play any of the type of games that leverage DLSS 3 in any capacity that's actually beneficial. I don't play first-person shooters, for one thing. And the funny thing is, almost every first-person shooter, except for maybe Fortnite, and that's technically a third-person shooter, all the first-person shooters that most people play are actually better on Radeon. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of tech reviewers know that, and they show it in their review videos, but no one seems to latch onto that. Call of Duty has been better on Radeon for literally a decade. Battlefield also is better on Radeon. Since Battlefield 3, Battlefield has been better on Radeon than on GeForce. So it's like, those are the pretty big ones. Halo is probably better on GeForce, although I have to look. I don't actually know, so I'm not going to say that with confidence. I guess Counter-Strike, CSGO is pretty much like even, because CSGO is better on Ryzen CPUs, so that's also kind of weird. So Halo Infinite is better on Nvidia. Okay, so Halo Infinite is better on Nvidia. Okay, that's like one game. That's like one shooter. The only first-person shooter that performs better is called on AMD. Battlefield's better on AMD also. But those are the two big ones. Those are the two big rival ones that were like always better on AMD for more than 10 years. Or at least 10 years. Well, no, 2011 was like Battlefield 3. So yeah, for like 12 years. Anyway. So next gen Nvidia Ada Next gaming GPU rumored to feature massive 512-bit bus. Okay, so we've gotten to the point now. This is actually kind of believable when I think about it, because when you think of how, the funny thing is that looks like it has tiles, doesn't it? That looks like it has chiplets, just like the MCDs on the Radeon RDNA 3. So Nvidia reached a point with the 4090 where, in order for them to achieve the surprising improvement that they got with the 4090, if they're to pull that off again with the 5090, they have to go either chiplet or they have to go with a really wide memory bus to push higher pixel count at resolution. So 512 bus could be a thing. Doesn't sound like it's unbelievable. So it makes sense considering how fast the 4090 is to begin with. So in order to go beyond the 4090, they have to go like way, way, way beyond. TCG for life, you've been a subscriber for a while. Just wondering if you had any Car 5 Vanguard cards for sale, like the ones from Premium. Such as Brake Ride. Oh, you're asking about... So you're asking about the... Like, the 11K Vanguards? They're not... So, I still have all the cards, but they're not for sale. They're in my collection. And I don't plan on selling them, just because, like you said, they're really rare now. So I'm gonna hold on to them. Some of those are my favorite. So my favorite era of Vanguard was kind of the Brake Ride era. So all the Brake Ride cards, I'm going to keep those. All those decks that I have featured on the channel from years back, I still have all of the cards. They haven't gone anywhere, and they're not going anywhere. So sorry. I mean, it's negative news. I know you're interested in obtaining the cards, but I like the cards. I'm keeping the cards. So that's kind of that. But yeah, like I haven't kept up with the game since the Overdress started. Since Overdress, like I haven't really paid attention to the game. Like there was a point where I was trying to get back into it, but then it just never happened. So your favorite era is Break? Yeah, that's my favorite era too. I mean, I liked Legion also. Legion was kind of broken, but Legion was actually pretty cool. So yeah, like that whole way the game played back then, like first it was Limit Break, then Ultimate Break, right? The LB5. Then there was Brake Ride, and then there was Legion, and then they went into Stride. And Stride was where the game just kind of went overboard in terms of everything got kind of broken, and certain decks became way too powerful. I'm thinking about Time Leap, you know, like TikTok Worker, Time Leap, Melum, remember that stuff? So yeah, if someone gave you the link for where the image is from, and it's in the Discord. GitHub. So this is actually, wait a minute, this is like source code from, is this like for ROCm? Okay. Okay, you got it from here. What is this for? This is the release for this is Windows? ROCm on Windows? Or what wait, hold on. What is this? Windows additional GPUs. What is this for though? Is this like an SDK for Radeon Open Compute ROCm on Windows? Is this on Windows? I'm confused. I thought we were talking about ROCm on Linux. Does ROCm work on Windows? If it does, I need to look into how to install this. But does this require running like a driver that's different from the regular Radeon driver? Huh. Okay, I need to read up on this. I'm not familiar with ROCm on Windows. Up until now, I always thought ROCm is something that you run on Linux. Okay. I mean, it kind of makes sense because CUDA workloads work on Windows, and ROCm is supposed to be kind of the AMD equivalent of CUDA, so that makes sense. So anyway, the list. So these are all the GPUs. Wait, why is there's like an X. There's like a row of X's here. Architecture, name, architecture. The LLVM target is this stuff. The GFX 1100. Then there's this URL. Runtime. I guess that's the first green check mark, and then the HIP SDK is the second one, if I'm reading that correctly. So Radeon Pro 7 is supported. Oh no, it's not. It's okay. But if this is Windows, then how is this any different? Like, how does this apply to Linux ROCm though? Because I'm running ROCm on Linux. See what I'm saying? Like, this is the problem, though. Like, this is not in, like, an official public document. This is found, like, as a table on a GitHub doc for, like, Windows support. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't it's not very confidence inspiring just because of the way it's presented. It just seems like somebody put this in a, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, I was kind of hoping that there would be some kind of official document like this, like a rocm.docs.amd.com, as opposed to something off of GitHub that looks unofficial to me. Like, so, see what I'm saying? So it's like the documentation piece is really, really lacking. When it comes to AMD, so this is the thing. I can understand why people default to Nvidia sometimes. Nothing to do with the gaming stuff. The gaming stuff really, like, AMD is offering better value. Like, the only thing Nvidia really has is DLSS 3 at this point, and that's really only applicable to the 4000 series or the 40 series GPUs. So, and that's like the smallest install base of Nvidia users technically, because most of them are on 30 series or older. So, but on the professional side, or on like things that are not gaming, AMD has a lot of work to do, because, and I know I give Intel a hard time because I expect a lot from Intel. Even though Intel is new to the GPU world, they're not really that new. Like, when we're thinking about Intel has integrated graphics for so many years now that they're not new to the GPU world. And when it comes to documentation, Intel does do a good job, better than AMD. In fact, I would go so far as to say Intel's documentation sometimes is even better than Nvidia's documentation in terms of the amount of depth that you can find. It's just kind of buried in, like, tons and tons of, like, URL links that is so hard to find. But the problem with AMD is, I guess the team is so small or something, where it's like you try to find documents on something and it's like not, it's either poorly kept up to date, or it's abandoned, or it's like irrelevant. It's like talking about something like, for example, the best example I could give you is this right here. Linux supported GPUs. For the consumer, they literally only support Radeon 7. How many people have Radeon 7? Like, that is like, this is like a rare unicorn GPU. Now, I actually have one, but I'm just saying, like, not a lot of people have Radeon 7. So it's like, why Radeon 7? Why not Vega 64 or 56? Because that's like way more common than Radeon 7. You see what I'm saying? So to me, that's just weird. And then nothing else is listed. Like, RDNA 2 is not listed, even though way more people have RDNA 2 than any of these older things. Why is the 5700 XT not here? Like, what's up with RDNA 1? It's like RDNA 1 is abandoned. It's like you never see it listed anywhere. Better RT performance, better VR performance are the main benefits over XTX. RT, yes. VR, I don't know about that. I don't think so. I think they're the same. It depends on what VR HMD people are talking about, though. So the problem with VR is, if you're doing VR on an Oculus Quest 2, it's the same, because it's not that high resolution to begin with. So if you go up to like a 4K HMD, then obviously the 4090 is going to be better, because it's better at the higher resolution to begin with, regardless of whether we're talking about VR or not. So that's just a rasterization thing. So the VR thing, that's not true. And then it's there's an asterisk with that statement, with, oh, it's better on VR. Because it's like, well, what HMD are we talking about? If we're talking about the regular VR, struggle with XTX on VR chat, well, what VR headset are they using? Are they using an Oculus Quest 2? I don't think they are. Or if they are, they shouldn't be having a problem. Well, anyway, so the documentation piece is really lacking. And that's kind of why it's so hard to find things. And then it's like when you find something like this, it doesn't tell you anything relevant. So they're okay, what are they using? Because I'm using an Oculus Rift and I don't have any problems. Now, granted, an Oculus Rift is kind of old, but it works. Okay. PlayStation 5 new model, rumored to sport a 5nm APU, no liquid metal cooling. The no liquid metal cooling is fine, because if this is a lower power, like if it's a node shrink, meaning it's going to be like a PlayStation 5 Slim, then it's going to be a cost-reduced model, which is very typical of a PlayStation mid-cycle refresh. You know, all the PlayStation 4 Slim, the PlayStation 3 Slim, they were all cheaper to build than the original model, and they used less electricity, so they ran cooler, they ran quieter. So obviously, if this is the same as those, then this doesn't really need liquid cooling either, or liquid metal cooling, I should say, for the IHS. So that's fine. CFI 1300, 5nm APU, no liquid metal. So yeah, I mean this is kind of expected because the PlayStation 5 that came out in 2020. So, okay. I think what we'll do now, let's see, is there anything else that I had written down here on that list? Oh, Starfield. We need to talk about Starfield real quick. So, the more I read up on that game, the more I watch, like, videos talking about it, the more it actually seems interesting to me. So, I'm actually looking forward to playing that game now. There's another game, though, that's coming out around the exact same time. So, Fires of Rubicon is coming out. Let's see, is there an article on Fires of Rubicon? Remnant 2 came out recently. Lords of the Fallen looks really good. The one game, though, is... where is it? Armored Core 6. Okay, here's another interesting... So this is the game that I wasn't really that hyped up about. But this game comes out around the same time as Starfield. I think Starfield is, what, August 26th or something? And then this one's like August 24th? Or maybe it's the same day. Does it say right here? August 25th. So Fires of Rubicon comes out, and according to this article, it'll support 120 FPS. That's because so many people complained about, like, From Software games only capping at 60 FPS, like, aka Elden Ring. And then if you tried to go above that, it would break the engine, and you'd have all kinds of weird timing issues with the, like, frames and animations not working right. So, ray tracing on PC, you know that's going to be just as dumb as the ray tracing implementation on Elden Ring, knowing these guys. Main campaign will take 20 hours to complete. So, for those of you that are big, like, Dark Souls fans and Elden Ring fans, this is nothing like Dark Souls. I mean, the only thing that it has in common is that it'll be really, really challenging to play. But essentially it's a mecha shooter type game. It's kind of like a shooter action game. It's not a first-person shooter. It's more like a third-person shooter. But you're in a mecha, so it's definitely different. How do you think Starfield will perform? I think Starfield, from what I can tell, Starfield's going to be very CPU heavy. It's starting to look like it's going to be very CPU bound in a lot of scenarios. especially in the cities. I think when you're exploring a planet without a lot of vegetation, without a lot of like NPCs around, without a lot of like independent objects, just kind of, tessellation, GI, and all that stuff for like terrain and foliage and that kind of thing, then it'll be GPU bound most of the time. But I do think that Starfield, for the most part, is going to be very, very CPU bound. A game that came out earlier this year that is very similar is Jedi Survivor. And Jedi Survivor, the first part of that game on the initial planet, Coruscant, was extremely CPU bound most of the time. And another game that is kind of a game, it's still in alpha and it's still like not released. So if you guys know about Star Citizen, I think Starfield will be very similar to Star Citizen in terms of how resource intensive it can be, in terms of the CPU utilization. So maybe not as bad as Star Citizen because it is a newer game. However, if you guys remember, Skyrim was very CPU heavy when it came out, and Starfield is using a, kind of like a next generation engine, which is still heavily based on Skyrim's engine. I forgot the name of the engine, but it's going to be like Skyrim, only in outer space and with a whole bunch of planets to explore. So I think it'll perform decently well as long as you have a good CPU. I think it's going to be very CPU heavy. So Citizen, what do you think of Remnant 2 really needing DLSS FSR for? A lot of games that have come out this year require DLSS and FSR and XeSS for optimal performance. Forspoken is a good example. Hogwarts Legacy is another really good example. I would not play those games without DLSS or FSR. I mean, maybe Hogwarts Legacy, but at 4K resolution, I would probably play with DLSS or FSR set to quality mode for Hogwarts Legacy at 4K. But I guess for 1440, it's not needed. But that's an example of a game where you kind of need those games. The Last of Us Part 1 was another game that if you didn't play it without FSR, or if you played it without FSR, it could be very, very hard on the GPU. So there's already lots of games that kind of, I don't want to say require, but you kind of need to leverage upscaling technology, which is unfortunate, but it is the reality of 2023. Will X3D CPUs benefit from this? Yes, they will. Or I guess I should say Starfield will benefit from X3D CPUs. Pretty much guaranteed. A game like that is going to benefit from X3D. So the reason why I can say that with confidence is because Star Citizen is a very similar game. And that game is extremely CPU bound. Probably one of the most CPU bound games I have ever played. And the X3D CPUs are currently the best CPUs for Star Citizen. Like, hands down. The 7800 X3D, best CPU for Star Citizen. The 7950 X3D, 700 X3D, and the 5800 X3D, and I guess now the 5600 X3D, all of those CPUs perform significantly better in the 1% lows and the 0.1% lows than any other CPU that exists today. So, yeah. I expect Starfield to be the same way. Speaking of Starfield, let's search Starfield real quick. Starfield. Is this the requirements? Do they show that on this article? We looked at it last time. Oh, right here. Okay. So, the minimum spec for Starfield, and the thing that's a little misleading is they don't actually tell you what the resolution for this is. AMD Ryzen 5 2600X or an Intel i7 6800K, that's a... What is that? That's a That's a Skylake X, or no, that's a Haswell. No, that's a Broadwell E. Why is this here? Anyway, AMD Radeon RX 5700 or a 1070 Ti. This sounds wrong to me, but for minimum, that is some pretty heavy duty minimum though. Like even the 1070 Ti is worse than this. This is like a 2060 Super, which is also kind of like a 1080. So it's like I guess, but they're kind of close, but not really. And then here the for the recommended, basically a Zen 2 or an Intel 10th gen, that is way more believable. This is probably terrible. Although it'll do fine, but what I can tell you is that this minimum spec is going to have a lot of dips. This is going to have a lot of dips in the cities. Like in Constellation, you're going to have a lot of dips, sub 30, sub 60, happening with these CPUs. And you'll notice it during cutscenes and stuff like that too. These will fix a lot of that. So definitely, if you have a Zen 2 or better, you're probably fine. If you have an Intel 10th gen, you'll probably also be fine, according to this. So I'll believe it. The 16 gigs of RAM, I don't believe this. I don't agree. I don't recommend this. I think recommended should be 32. Every game that I have tested that has come out in 2023 has proven to me that in 2023, if you want a good gaming PC, you better make sure you budget for 32 gigabytes of RAM. If you're running on 16 gigabytes of RAM, that is what I consider the absolute minimum spec. So minimum says 16, recommended should actually say 32. So I don't agree with this. 2080 and that it doesn't make sense. And I don't even know why they're listing these, because if they're doing RT, maybe that's why they're doing this. But the rasterization between these two is so different. For those that don't know, you can literally reread this as RTX 3080. This is literally saying RTX 3080 or RTX 2080. That is how wrong this reads. That's why it doesn't make any sense. In fact, the 6800 XT is actually a little bit better than the 3080 when it comes to pure rasterization. But I guess if we're talking ray tracing, then that makes a little bit more sense. But the difference between the gap between these two cards in rasterization is more than the gap between these two cards in ray tracing. So that doesn't make any sense. And then obviously, all this stuff. They say, okay, the other thing too about Starfield that I noticed in the minimum spec? It says SSD required. SSD is required. That means that even on a minimum spec, you cannot use a hard drive for this game. Maybe Rich from Digital Foundry will try it with a hard drive, so he can be the guinea pig that tests the load times. But basically, you need to have an SSD for this game. So, if it was me, if you want what I consider recommended, my recommended spec over their recommended spec would be a Ryzen 5000 series CPU, so like a 5800X 3D, or an Intel 12th gen, I guess, like an Intel i5 12600K, that or the 5800X 3D. 5800X 3D is gonna be faster though, so that's weird. But the thing is, the 12th gen will be cheaper than the 13th gen. And then you need to have 32 gigabytes of memory. And then for the graphics card, either the 6800 XT or the Nvidia 3080, not the 2080. The 2080 is no. To play it safe, I would say 3080 or 6800 XT if you want a really good experience playing this game. And then everything else is basically the same. Okay. So I think this game is actually, the more I've seen footage of this game, the more I think this game is actually going to be really good. In terms of, I just hope that it's not a buggy mess at release, because that will ruin its reputation. There's a lot riding on this game. Will you stream this game? Yes, I will. Yes, I will be covering this game. I already have this game from AMD Rewards. I have the premium edition waiting to go. So yeah, I'll have the game on launch day. We will be testing it with the 7950X and the 7900 XTX, and we will also be testing it with a 7950X 3D. And I don't know what GPU I'm going to test with that CPU. I might test the 3090 Ti, and I will also probably test the 7900 XT. Maybe the 6950 XT. But I'll be testing a couple of GPUs at 1440p on a 7950 X3D. And then for 4K Ultra, we'll be testing it on the 7950X with the 7900 XTX. So you expect to see Starfield shown on this channel on multiple live streams. So there'll be a live stream testing it at 4K Ultra, maxed out. There'll be a live stream testing it at 1440p, and I might do some actual like offline videos comparing like the game with GPUs or something. Maybe, I guess. If you guys like to see that kind of stuff, I'll do that. Bethesda wrote the book on buggy games, though. So many of my favorite Bethesda games are heavily modded due to bugs. Well, do you think the Skyrim mod community will embrace Starfield? Do you think that once Starfield comes out, the mod community that exists for Skyrim will basically do a mass exodus into Starfield, and they'll just mod Starfield instead? Or do you think they'll still mod Skyrim? Also, did you just get lucky for your reference 7900 XTX not getting heating issues? I don't think I got lucky. I just got one that was not messed up. Like, that problem was resolved a long time ago. So I haven't heard of anybody having issues with that since like January. If the Skyrim folks don't, maybe the Fallout mods will. Oh yeah, I almost forgot about Fallout. You're right, yeah, Bethesda did do Fallout. Fallout was actually their most recent big game because it was Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim. Then they started doing like Fallout 4, and then was probably some other Fallout game. I forgot. I haven't kept up with Fallout though. Hey Marcelo. Yeah, we're talking about Starfield again. You missed all the discussion about the DDR5. So I tested 128 gigabytes of DDR5 again. This time it was on Intel. And the spoiler alert was the results on Intel are the same as AMD. I can only do 4800 on 128 gigs. 4800 megahertz is stable on Intel. It's also stable on AMD. As soon as I go above 4800, I either can't post or my Windows crashes. So in one case it was so bad that I had to reinstall or I didn't have to reinstall Windows, I had to repair Windows because the kernel got corrupted. Fallout 3, Fallout 4, Fallout 76, so many bugs. Oh man. Wow. Yeah. The mod community for those Bethesda games, though, it's kind of interesting that they kind of all congregated around Bethesda games. It's like specifically Bethesda games. It's not like Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk, although there are mods for those games, just not nearly as many, and they're just not as big as an ecosystem for other games. I mean, I'm familiar with the mods for like Elden Ring, but most of them are kind of gimmicky, or they're like extra challenges to make the game play in a different way. So it's interesting, but it's not like the mods for Skyrim or Fallout, where they literally change a lot of aspects of the map, of the game world, etc. So the engine Bethesda uses is so moddable, you can make another game just... Yeah, the cool thing about Starfield is Starfield's engine is still heavily based on the Skyrim and the Fallout engine. So that's the good thing about it, actually. I'm actually glad that that Bethesda is not using some, run-of-the-mill UE5 or UE4. I'm so glad they're not doing that. I'm so glad they're sticking to their own stuff, because that's actually better in the long run. I hate when companies just fold and just, license UE5 and just use that as a cop-out. But anyway, yeah. The thing, someone was saying that I forgot his name, the main guy who shows up in, like, all the Starfield announcement videos and stuff, they were saying that he always wanted to make Starfield. Like, Starfield was the game that he wanted to make since, like, the 1990s. But the Elder Scrolls series took precedence because Morrowind was so successful on Xbox and PC. So then they did Oblivion, and Oblivion was also really good. And I think Oblivion was... I remember Morrowind had some mods, but Oblivion had even more. But then I think it wasn't really until Skyrim where the mod community really took off for Bethesda's games. I think that's an accurate statement, right? Like, isn't Skyrim the game where mods... Because I remember people were modding Oblivion. Oblivion had a lot of heavily modified mods, but... Skyrim was where it, like, really got good with all the mods, and then, like, Fallout came after that. Fallout 4. Yeah, it remains to be seen, though, like, how... Because it seems like the game's gonna have a lot of stuff to do. I mean, they claim 1,000 planets. So, I'm pretty sure most of those planets are just going to be gas giants that you can't land on. So that 1,000 planet marketing gimmick could literally just be a marketing gimmick. But they claim that 10% of the planets, 10% of the 1,000, so basically 100 planets, are inhabitable. So, which is actually really nice to know, because think about it, 100 planets to explore, that's still a lot of planets to explore. So, think about like a typical game in terms of the design, in terms of the zones that you can visit in an MMO or in a single player RPG. Like the amount of continents, the amount of zones, the leveling zones, etc. They're typically about, like a dozen. Think of this game as like 100 planets or like 100 zones to explore. Now, I don't know like how big, like if the planet is fully like if you can navigate across an entire planet, if it's really, really big, like it would be cool if they have a throwback to like some of the planets that are in other sci-fi stories. What I mean by that is some of the planets that I guess kind of the overall setting, the environment were based off of planets from Star Trek, from Star Wars. Now, obviously, the characters aren't going to be the same, but visiting planets that are inspired by planets from Star Wars, Star Trek, movies like Space Odyssey, Interstellar. Can you imagine? I want to go to like Miller's Planet. I want to go to Miller's Planet and like watch that giant tidal wave come by and then like outrun that tidal wave. That would be cool. Like if that was in the game, like that would be really cool. Stuff like that. And then like a black hole and a wormhole and all that stuff. I hope they have a lot of that sci-fi stuff in the game because it's a sci-fi game. I mean, come on. But it seems like, from what I have seen, Starfield seems like it plays a lot like Star Citizen. And I know not a lot of people have played Star Citizen, but it's going to be like Star Citizen, only way more streamlined. And it cuts out all the annoying, tedious stuff that Star Citizen has. And I think that's going to be a really good thing. Fallout 3, Bethesda even released an official modding tool for it called... Was Fallout 3 after Skyrim, or was it before Skyrim? Have you ever played Frontier Elite 2? It's a space sim game from 1983 where you can actually land on planets. I've never played it. Was it on... What? Was it just on PC? 1993 would have been like, what? That's like before PS1. Just hope it does not over-promise like the first version of No Man's Sky. Yeah. Well, the thing is, I think they're going to deliver. Like, when it comes to what you'll be able to do in the game, the cool thing about Starfield is that it has enough factions. Like, there's enough different groups that you can either choose to side with or not. There's like, for example... There's like kind of like a mafia group or a mafia faction. There's some religious zealots. There's multiple of those that you could side with or fight against. There's the Federation people. There's the whatever opposition to that. You know, there's like, and then the thing is you can do the traits like extrovert or introvert or Freestar Collective. So I think in terms of the character creation is going to be kind of like Hogwarts Legacy. Only instead of like magic and wizardry and all that kind of stuff from like 19th century setting, it's going to be like sci-fi, space age technology, that kind of setting. So... but the cool thing is you'll be able to go and like explore the solar system and go find out what happened to the Earth. You can go see Mars and all that stuff. If you can really go to the solar system, I really hope you can go to like Titan, the main moon from Saturn, because I kind of want to see what that looks like. I want to see what their artists kind of thought of how that should look, because that's supposed to be it's a moon that is kind of like Earth, but it has like methane oceans and stuff like that. So that'll be kind of interesting to see. So, you know, that's cool. Like being able to go to the solar system, even though the game doesn't take place in the solar system. But they have said that the solar system is in the game. And you can go there. And they've even shown footage of going to Mars. So that's cool. Because it takes place in an alternate galaxy, or an alternate like solar system that's not the one that Earth is located in. So that's interesting. It sounds promising though, and like the fact that it has a lot of different factions, and it's a big open world game with a bunch of planets to explore. So it could be kind of boring, but at the same time, I think that it has a linear story, so if you just want to experience the story, you can just stick to the story and it won't waste your time. And if you want to go off the beaten path and explore and do all this stuff, so be it. It's all open. So that's really cool. I think the game definitely shows promise in terms of being a good game. Is just my one reservation is basically Bethesda's track record. Like, let's be honest, like Bethesda's track record, at least for the games at launch, hasn't really been, you know, like the best case there. So one thing I'm concerned with is that they never showed any other intelligent life form aside from the humans. That's a good point. I didn't think of that. Yeah, that is actually a really good point. Who knows? I mean, maybe. I mean, maybe you could end up being like Star Trek, and the other intelligent beings end up being like enemies or something. Who knows? I don't know. But it's described as Skyrim in space, so take that for whatever that's worth. Fallout 3 was a bit before. Yeah, I figured it was. Because Skyrim was 2011, and Fallout 4 was 2014. So I was thinking, like, Fallout 3 would have had to be either, like, literally smack dab in the middle of those two, or would have to have been before Skyrim. But it is really, really cool that we're finally getting a nice, what looks like a pretty good sci-fi RPG, because we haven't gotten one in a while. And the problem is, now they're saying this game is September 6th. Did it get pushed out? I thought it was going to be in August. Was it always supposed to be? Was it always supposed to be September 6th? I thought it was like the end of this. I thought it was the end of August. Well, if it's September, that's good, because that means that that'll give enough of a space between Armored Core 6 and this game. Okay, so it's always been September? Okay, I didn't know that. I thought it was going to be August. I thought it was going to be like August 26th or something. I don't know why I kept thinking August 26th. But anyway, so it's September 6th, so that means we are out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So roughly 6 weeks. 6 weeks out. And Fires of Rubicon is 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks out. Okay, so there's a 4-week gap between Armored Core and Starfield. So I'll be playing both games, for those wondering. I will definitely be streaming Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon. And I will definitely be streaming Starfield. So these are going to be the next 2 big games. Are you thinking about Immortals of Avium? I already forgot about it, man. Like, I looked into it. And then I was like, I don't know. When you described it, like shooting magic from your fingers, I thought that sounded so cool. And then I looked up some more gameplay videos, and I thought, this reminds me of Godfall. And Godfall looked really nice, but it was really, really boring. So, I don't know. I kind of think Immortals of Avium is gonna be really boring, but who knows? Let's see what kind of articles are on here. Immortals of Avium. There's a new trailer. When is it coming out? It got delayed. It got delayed. The problem is, wasn't it EA? Yeah, EA is the reason why I don't like it. I don't know. The problem is, there's going to be so many games that come out back to back, like, real soon. Literally, Fires of Rubicon, no pun intended, like, starts a fire. It literally lights a fire of, like, a release of games just unleashing out into the world, like one after another. Because we've got Fires of Rubicon, we have Starfield, Lies of P, and Lords of the Fallen. There's literally like 4 games that I'm tracking, all within like a 60 to 90 day window. And then there's some other games too that I'm not that interested in, like Alan Wake 2 is coming out around that time. And then if we go further into October, well, actually, no, that was, yeah. There was another, Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 is also coming out in that same window within, like, all these other games. So, basically, Q3 and like the beginning of Q4. So basically September, October, and November. Well, no, actually it's like the end of August through October. We'll have a lot of like crazy big games. So it's just gonna be just as compact and compressed with all these games, just like how it was in say March, April, and May. It's the same thing all over again. I mean, even June had a lot of games. June had Street Fighter 6 and Final Fantasy 16. Apparently, Rockstar Games is doing a Red Dead Redemption. Oh yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, but that's yeah. What would have made what would have made 2023 like probably one of the best years of the decade in terms of game releases was if Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. That game was originally slated for a December release of this year. It got moved to next year for like Q1, probably March or February. That getting moved out to next year is actually a good thing because I kind of think, like, I don't think Square Enix wants two Final Fantasy games to compete with each other for the title of Game of the Year. Because I think 16 is probably going to be one of them, one of the games on Game of the Year. And then Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, and then maybe Starfield. If Starfield ends up... See, the thing is, Starfield's a huge gamble, like, saying that it could be on Game of the Year, like, as a candidate. It's a huge gamble to say that, because Starfield could either be really, really good, or it could be really, really bad. So, it's... I can't see it being somewhere in the middle. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's either going to be really good at launch, or it's going to be really bad at launch, and then it's just going to get really good over several years due to the mod community. So, that's what I think is going to happen with Starfield. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, what are... I guess I should ask the chat, what are your most anticipated games of 2023, if any at all, that we've been talking about? Or if we haven't mentioned them, I mean, go ahead and mention them in the chat. Or if they've already come out, that's fine too. Like, one of mine was Final Fantasy 16, another one was Hogwarts Legacy. And both of those games have come out earlier this year, like in the first half. Jedi Survivor was pretty good too. Hogwarts may be a game of the year. It could. I don't think it'll win, but it could be on the list. I can see it getting put on the list just because it's a novel game. Like, there hasn't been a Harry Potter universe type game in a long, long time. And it's actually a really good game. But I don't know. When I compare it to Final Fantasy 16 and Zelda... in my mind, I think both of those games are actually better than it. It's not a bad game, though. It's one of those games where it's like... They could just throw it on the Game of the Year list just as another one to list, so it doesn't have... so the list isn't empty. But, yeah. That's definitely one of the most anticipated games of the year. You're hyped for Like a Dragon Gaiden coming in November? Doubt it's gonna win. Yeah. Yeah, those games are so niche. The thing is, those games have like a... I don't want to say like a cult following, but I don't think they have a cult following, but they're just kind of very niche and specific. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, I think this game will probably win Best Mobile Game of the Year. Like, Star Rail. This game surprised me. Like, I wasn't expecting this game to come out when it did. And then when it came out, I was a little skeptical because it's a turn-based mobile game. But it actually is really good. It's like a... You know how Genshin Impact is like a Chinese ripoff of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild? Honkai Star Rail is like a Chinese ripoff of Persona 5 Royal. I'm just saying, like that. That's exactly what it is, though. It's like a ripoff of Persona in so many ways. It's laughable, really. It's laughable because you can do like the most OP combos and stuff, or you can like loop things. MiHoYo always wins the best mobile game of the year, at least for the past 3 years. Oh, is that true? I never actually even bothered to look at that. There was one year where like Genshin Impact was up against some other. What was that other? What was it? God of War Ragnarok or some? There was some game that like everybody was saying that game should win, but then like Genshin and the people who don't know about Genshin Impact were like, but some Chinese game is like gonna do so good, or like why is it doing so good? And it's like, why do so many people play that game? But the thing is, or maybe it was like Fortnite versus Genshin Impact versus like some other game that people thought that should have won because it was actually like a new thing or something like that. Or am I remembering this correctly? But see, like this game, watch this. Watch how OP this is. Hold on, let's turn up the audio. Let's turn up the audio up a little bit. First of all, this game has good music. MiHoYo's games always have good music.
The sword is like water. It cannot remain still.
It was probably in 2021. Fantasian versus Genshin Impact. Yeah. Okay, so hold on. What was I gonna do again? Oh, okay. So we'll just auto battle this, because here's the thing. Like, I can literally. That's some sick bass. Hold up. Let's what do I want to do here? Well, let's turn the music up. Let's turn the music up to max. And you know what's cool about Genshin Impact, or you know what's cool about MiHoYo? I can play like MiHoYo's. I can literally play the OST like I'm doing right now. I can have these songs playing on a YouTube live stream, and it doesn't get flagged for copyright. It doesn't get like demonetized instantly. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't care. They're like, whatever. It's like we don't respect copyright law in China, so you know, whatever, you can do. So I guess, okay, it works both ways, guys. All right, so yeah, dude, I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. All right, so let's the fight is set. Look at this edgelord. Look at this edgelord. And then she fires up like a drone. Look at that. All right, let's slow down battle a little bit. Why is it going so fast? Oh, it just wants to go fast because. All right. But look, like, look at that. I'm playing telepathically. You see that? I'm playing with my mind. I'm controlling the game with my brain. Like, without even touching anything, I'm making the characters do all the moves. Like that. That's how cool this game is. That's why this game should win Best Mobile Game of the Year. Best soundtrack of a mobile game. Straight up best mobile game. Best art direction. Best level design. Whatever. I mean, obviously, I'm biased because I don't play a lot of mobile games. Because I'm playing the game on a PC, 4K max settings, and it runs really good. So, I mean, that was so fast. You know, that's how you do your dailies right there. So, let's put some substitute character in. Just get her or something. That's the thing about MiHoYo games. They literally have like every anime trope imaginable is in their game. Like they have like Edgelord Extravaganza. They've got the strong independent woman. I don't know what you call her. And then you have you have Water Boy. You have like the girly looking Water Boy. And then you have the Fox Girl with the bow and arrow. You pretty much have like every archetype in this game. Oh, look at that. I hit level 30, so I can actually get more wishes. And I can even choose a weapon, but I'll choose that later. So you can actually choose a weapon. I don't know which one I need right now, so I'm not going to choose that. The best type of diversity. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you've got, like... you've got edgelords and fox girls and... effeminate boys and strong independent women. Oh man. and when you play the background music, you don't get demonetized either. Okay. So I have like no gold, so we're gonna have to farm gold. Which is kind of lame, because I don't have any. What I wish, you know what I wish though? I wish that they would actually. I wish they would give you, like, you didn't have to do these missions down in the mines for the gold. It was really lame. Okay, so for this group, we want, they say you want thunder, physical attack, and wind. So we're gonna go back and get that edgelord. She's gonna stay. He's gonna stay. Waterboy can go. We don't need him. We need to get somebody's. I need to summon another player's broken general, like this dude. Yeah, this guy's got some broken stats. So he's slow though. So we'll get him, and then we'll get. Who should I get? I guess her. The anime girl, the girl who grew up, who was raised by a robot. Yeah, they've got those type of characters in the game too. See, like they pretty much have everybody. So, who else? They've got strong. Hold up, this is strong independent woman, or is this strong independent woman? I don't know. One of them is even more. Okay, this one's strong independent woman. This one's even stronger independent woman, or this is like strong independent woman. This is strong independent woman on steroids. This is masculine general, because that hairstyle is so masculine. This is anime protagonist like default design right here. This is what would this archetype be? The teacher woman something. This is the I wish I was a Jedi. This is basically like if the girl from the Star Wars movies, the modern Star Wars movies, I forgot her name. If she was a male, this is basically her. With dark hair instead of brown hair. And then this is a dude, because apparently dudes in anime games are supposed to have really long hair. And then here's another dude. This is like a paladin dude. Then you have, what is this? This is a punk. This is like a punk hacker girl. It's like, that's exactly what that is. Because this is exactly what hackers look like in real life. Yeah, that's totally accurate. Girl from modern Star Wars movies, Rey. Yeah, so this would be Rey if she was a dude. And then and this is nurse. This is the nurse archetype without wearing a nurse outfit. Fox girl. The other Fox girl, because apparently there's more than one. You have the robot, or no, this is not a robot. This is the, what archetype is this? This is a doll, but it's like a reanimated doll. I forget what that's called. A Ninkyo. And then you have, what is she supposed to be? Research scientist. Some girl who doesn't even know who she is. The amnesia. This is the amnesia archetype. That was the Booba woman? Oh, you mean the redhead? Her? Serval is the rock star. Hook is the kid who has she has some kind of mech gadget arm that literally is heavier than her, yet she can somehow lift it because when she does her moves, the claw like literally drags her around with it. With her like hanging around and flailing in the background. And then the librarian girl, the gambler, I don't know what this is. She like plays mahjong, so this is like the gambler. You have Edgelord Boy or Edgelord Mini, because you've got Edgelord, you have like the Edgelord, and then you have like Mini Edgelord. You know what's funny? Both of them are destruction type characters. These two characters cut themselves, guys. Like, I'm not kidding. These two literally self-damage themselves to increase their damage output. That's like, this is an emo boy that cuts himself. Okay, all right, that's enough joking. And then this dude over here is like supposed to be the charismatic. I don't even know what his type is. He's like a charismatic person. Okay, so we're gonna keep this guy, and then I guess we'll try this without a healer and see how far we can get. Wait, for real? Yeah, no, well, okay, they don't literally cut themselves, but like they literally, yeah, they deal damage to themselves. they self-damage themselves. You'll see, like this guy, you'll see him basically reduce his own health. So let's see if I can do this without a healer or a tank.
Your end approaches.
Okay, do you see how edgelord that was? He was literally your end approaches, and then he attacks. See, like this is the thing that I'm gonna miss when I play a game like Starfield, because Starfield as a Western RPG. The thing about Western RPGs, think of like Fallout, The Witcher, Starfield, for example, Star Citizen, the Elder Scrolls games. They don't have those anime tropes. Now, that, depending on who you are, that could be a positive, but it can also be a negative, because the animation style for the combat moves, even though in these anime-inspired games, they have like the most fake moves, they look cool. And the reality is when a lot of people play video games, they don't want to just experience like an alternate reality. I guess some people do, but you also want to experience some kind of like abstract, like crazy fantasy that's so obviously not real. So, and that's why these type of games that have these over-the-top moves and they look cool with all these particle effects and explosions and like sword moves and stuff. Like, see, okay, look, even this, look at the detail. When she moves her sword, notice the hilt of the sword starts showing like those purple or pink sparkles or something. See, look at that. See how it's like this, the normal sword stance, and then she has like this sword stance. Dodge this, and then she does damage. And then you have this one dude with the long hair, and he fights with some kind of glaive. We have to give kudos for the voice actors. Recording these lines must have been hard.
One more time, but don't waste it.
Yeah, hold on. You know what? Let's listen to their voice lines. Let's analyze their voice lines. Let's remove the music. Let's just turn the voices up. Let's hear what they say. Let's turn the sound down. Let's see what he says.
Conflict is pitiless.
Conflict is pitiless. Let me turn up the volume so everybody can hear. She said, "Let me through." Okay, here we go.
You're not going anywhere.
You're not going anywhere. Okay, now now it's Edgelord's turn. Let's see what he has to say. He just made grunt noises.
Follow my charge.
Follow my charge.
Hear this thunder.
Hear this thunder. Okay, now this girl who has no shoes is just gonna attack.
Eliminating threat.
And her
Wanna see what I
surrogate
can do?
father did the attack for her, aka the giant robot.
You impede me.
You impede me. How edgelord. But see,
Failed to send you.
failed to send you.
Let
Okay,
me through.
watch this though. Here's the thing that I think makes this game best mobile game of the year. So these two characters have their ults ready. So now if I press her ult button,
Take this. Shape of Taishu.
MiHoYo knows how to make the characters look OP. They know how to make their characters look cool from every angle. Because now that she's in her Super Saiyan, like, powered up state, ready to do her ult, notice how they move the camera where it's like swaying ever so slightly to the left and the right.
Go again. He who strikes first. Just get on with it. Rise, Phoenix!
And then she summons the Phoenix. The great Phoenix comes out of the air, or I guess it came out of the sword or something. Voice actor for Long, white hair boy, is the same voice actor for Sino in Genshin. He's also the famous YouTube V2. Oh, I didn't know that.
I will dispatch you.
You said for the white hair? Oh, you mean the general. Jing Yuan.
Want to see what I can do?
See, look at that. Oh, you know what? Edgelord has something to say.
That paradise may be unreachable for me.
What? That paradise may be unreachable for me? He's like talking to himself. But he self-damages himself. He cuts himself, and you can see why his HP bar, he's like at 50% HP because he self-damages himself.
Savor it for me.
And then he basically does his ultimate edgelord move.
Follow my charge.
Conflict is pitiless.
Time for the master stroke.
Okay.
Show no mercy.
Okay, and that was 120,000. So I basically am completely out of Mora, or whatever this is called in this game. So I didn't know that guy. Wait. Oh yeah, I think I can I think I recognize the voice now that I think about it. He cuts himself with his own voice line. Yeah. Yeah, but that's the thing though, like, I don't get demonetized for playing, like, Gensh or any of MiHoYo's songs in the background. That's interesting. But yeah, like that, these games are cool. So the thing is, the game, this is why I always say that the graphics don't make the game. Like, a game can have ray tracing, you know, maxed out global illumination, all these particle physics, all these great, like, visuals. But if the game is not cool, if the game doesn't know how to be cool, then, or if the game, like, if it lacks things that actually matter, then it's not a great game. Like, in the words of, like, Yoda, the Jedi Master, great graphics do not a great game make, or something like that, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you play copyrighted music, the stream just goes down automatically. No, basically I get like a warning, a demonetization. Basically, the video gets demonetized. It depends on the copyright holder, but basically, like, I have streamed Genshin, And this game, and I always have the game audio playing in the background, like the music, for example, and I never have gotten
What is that?
like a demonetization notice.
Something is. Do you want to leave?
So that's why. Okay, so I think that's all I have to do. Yeah. So, but that's the thing, right? Like we were saying earlier, we're talking about like all these high-end specs for all these like modern games. This game came out in 2023. Its visuals don't look that great. Now, I think this game has better graphics than Genshin Impact, but compared to Starfield, you know, it doesn't have the same kind of polygon count. The character, it's just a different kind of game. Like the character design is different. You know, it's just a different setting, different environment, different target audience. But this game is a sci-fi game. Like this game takes place in outer space. Like you literally explore the stars in the Polar Express. See, we're in outer space. Wait, why is this guy here? See, look at that. We're in outer space. We're in. This is how the spaceship looks in Star Rail. So what could be hilarious is if like Star Rail is an RPG. So it's like this game for best RPG. Technically, this game is on a non-mobile platform. So I guess this game could be counted for like a contender for best RPG of 2023. I don't think it'll win, but I think it could be counted as one. You know what I'm saying? Like Final Fantasy 16 will definitely win because it's got a better story. It's got better music. This game has really good music though, but I don't think this game's music is as good as Genshin Impact's music. Genshin Impact though has been around for a number of years, so the amount of like the type of diversity in terms of the songs in that game it's just way too vast. So like I'd go so far as to say that Genshin Impact, if Genshin Impact was a new game this year, Genshin Impact soundtrack would rival Final Fantasy 16 soundtrack for best soundtrack of 2023. That's how good Genshin Impact's music is.
Nice.
You think there's too many RPGs this year, like Diablo 4? Yeah, Diablo 4 is also pretty good too. I didn't think of that. Baldur's Gate 3, though. Yeah, that one's gonna be on the list. Yeah. See, the thing is, it's gonna be... So, best RPG is gonna come down between Final Fantasy 16, Diablo 4, Baldur's Gate 3. It depends on how Lords of the Fallen gets classified, but Lords of the Fallen could also be on that list. Honkai Star Rail could technically be on that list. Although, for some reason, like mobile games tend to get categorized differently. But this game's kind of weird because it rides that fine line of, is it a mobile game? Or it is a mobile game, but it's also on the PC. And it's also supposed to be coming out to the PlayStation 5 at some point in the future. So then it'll be like on the console. So it's like, well, how do you grade the game if it's on the console? Even though it was also a mobile game.
The Landau family is big. There are always people around at home. The Express doesn't give me that same feeling. It's pretty empty. Not at all. It may be empty, but there are traces of life everywhere. I can just imagine how bustling it would be with people here. It's like Belobog in the dead of the night. Empty,
but see,
quiet,
like the mouths
kind.
don't move when they talk.
It's an amazing feeling for someone who's
So
never
it's
left
like the
Belobog
Dark Souls
before.
games. Let me see, is there like, whoops. Wait, is that a ray traced reflect? Oh no, see, they've got like a cube map. There's no ray tracing because see how there's a reflection in that glass, but I can't see I can't see the protagonist. He's not reflected. The mouth's not moving and invisible barriers are JRPG 101. Really? Okay, and this rabbit conductor always has something for me to do. It's like free money. You literally just find suspicious fur. Okay. There's a few tufts of soft hair tucked in the corners of the couch. Okay. See, like, is Starfield gonna have creatures like this rabbit creature as the conductor? Like, is Starfield gonna have that? I doubt it. That's the thing, though. Like, the comment earlier, right? Like, someone made a comment earlier about, is Starfield just gonna be humans only? And, like, every other non-human is basically gonna be an animal on a planet? Like, in terms of intelligent life forms? I mean, look at Star Rail. Star Rail has, like, a rabbit as a train conductor on a spaceship in outer space, exploring multiple galaxies. How's that for innovative? And it's literally the Polar Express in outer space. I hope not imagine this creature in realistic graphics. Yeah, I got mechanical parts from that. You can change the music. Oh, I didn't even know I had these many songs. What is this? Sanctus Medic? How do I... What's Salty Moon? What song is Salty Moon? I've never heard this song before. Like, Take the Journey? Oh, that's some... Okay, Crisis. Where's the battle music? Is this the battle music? Hold on, I can barely hear this music. Hold on, turn this up. Okay, that might be too loud. Salty music is playing. Hold on, what's Take the Journey sounds like Christmas music? Oh no, what's Crisis though? This is the one I was trying to hear. If one can predict future crisis and dangers, pity there is no if only. Oh, this is one of the BGM. Okay, I recognize this song. This is the Antimatter Legion. This is like one of their songs. Look at this freestyle. Set this one as the coach music. Okay, hold on. What's science fiction? Oh, this is that random song that plays when you're just running around the... Yeah, this is the Herta space station music. But see, whoever makes the music for MiHoYo... Well, okay, I know the main guy for Genshin. I don't know if the same guy composes the music for Star Rail, but clearly, whoever they have, the team that is behind making the music does a really good job at innovating in terms of stepping outside the bounds of what you think sci-fi music's supposed to sound like. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, when people think of sci-fi, they think of music from, like, Star Trek, Interstellar. They think of this kind of, like, orchestral, kind of, like, far out there music. But, you know, these guys are just like, no, we're just gonna do our own thing. Weightless. What is that? The moment when gravity changed. I forgot to even breathe. Okay, whoever... Well, that's... Okay. Okay. This is another battle theme for the Antimatter Legion. Oh, I like this one, yeah. This is the one, this is like the best farming music. This is one of the farming songs from the early game. But do you think Starfield's gonna have music like this? See, I doubt it. I don't think it's gonna be as experimental. I don't know if that's too loud for the stream. That might be too loud. You guys let me know if that's way too loud. This is like the first song. So the first disc is out of controls. What's the second one? What's kindling? Oh, I see. It's Bellabog. Okay, so this is the first planet. Order. So I'm still missing some songs. You're at 24 volume. Oh, these are the, That's cool that they put the soundtrack, though. They did the Final Fantasy 14 thing, because Final Fantasy 14 has the orchestrations. You can get the orchestration rolls in that game. Although they're much harder to get in that game than they are in this game. That's weird. Too loud? Okay. Yeah, it's too loud. Let's put -3. Fate. What about... Hold on, let's find the... I'm missing some of these. Where's the... Do I have the boss music in here? I don't know the name of the songs. A lot of these songs like start off... Oh no. Okay, Embers? Oh, okay, this is like the quiet version of the boss music. Because I don't have those. And then there's this. This is gonna be the... What is this place called? Yarillo 6? Yeah, this is Yarillo 6. Sanctus Medicus. I like Her to Space Station the most. Okay, there's a lot of songs I don't have. But I like, I think my favorite one is this one? Oh no, it was it Crisis? Was it Crisis or was it Weightless? I think it was Weightless. Weightless or Crisis? Basically, the Antimatter Legion songs, I think, are my favorite ones from the regular battle music. But the boss music in this game is also really good. Like, all three of them. Okay, maybe it was Crisis. Oh no, Weightless. Weightless is good. This one's good, too. Yeah, make this the coach music. I like that you can actually change that. That's cool. Okay, we'll go with that. Wait, so it plays even when I go down the hallway? I go into other people's rooms? Okay, maybe we don't want to keep this song. This song might get a little bit annoying after a while, because it's... This song goes, like, way too hard. I can't go in that room. I can't go in this room. After all this time, I still can't go in those 2 rooms. Okay, hold on. Let's change that bag. Change that bag. Let's take the journey. Is that the default? No, that's not the default. The game is on. Okay, that's not the default either. The synth is popping. It's interesting. Their imagination for like the Herta space station has a lot of like synth and weird kind of like. It's got like these kind of beats to it, and then the other places are completely different. You enter the train, battle music plays. This song makes me think of like Tekken. This sounds like Tekken Tag or something. Tekken Tag 2. Or no, this sounds like Tekken 7. Yeah, this sounds like a Tekken 7 song. I just realized Street Fighter 6 basically has no competition for best fighting game of the year unless Tekken 8 comes out before the end of the year. Here's hoping that Tekken 8 comes out, because I really want to play Tekken 8 when that comes out. Crisis? Oh, this is the other battle music. But this is like the other one that's... Okay, but yeah, this game, like... The point is, this game is a really good sci-fi game that... It deserves to be on the list of like best mobile game of the year.
Are there other matters?
Okay, that's too loud. The voices are like way too loud. And there's only literally like 2... Not really... Well, there's a planet, so this is the planet, and then there's... That's why this game feels like a mix between Star Ocean and Persona. That's what this game makes me think of. Sounds like 2012 dubstep for me. Really? Oh, you know what? Yeah, you know, because you know Tekken Tag 2. Tekken Tag Tournament 2 is my favorite Tekken game, and that game came out in 2012. That's like one of my favorite fighting games of all time, and it came out in 2012, and it has a lot of dubstep. Yeah, Tekken Tag 2 has tons of dubstep songs in it. Like, It's Not a Tuna. Like, if you don't know what I'm talking about, like, look up, like, the song It's Not a Tuna, Tekken Tag 2, and there's, like, another one. There's, like, 3 or 4 songs in that game that are, like, some of the best fighting game music ever made. Street Fighter 6 would win regardless. They did an impeccable single-player multiplayer. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, Tekken 8 has to have, like, a really good, I think the single-player piece is where it would fall short. Because historically, Tekken has not had a good single-player campaign in a long time. Not since, like, Tekken 5. I just realized that Blade, the edgelord, like, hugs his sword when he's idle.
Careful now. Don't get your clothes wet.
So we can go inside the museum. This museum, I think, will be closed to the public after 20 days or something. You think Starfield's gonna have stuff like museums in it? Is it gonna have a museum that has, like, old school exhibits of like cars and stuff, and like old school industrial robots that have traffic light parts in them and things like that. The only thing that this game lacks is you can't sit down. In Genshin, you can sit down anytime there's like a seat, but you can't sit down on seats in this game, which is kind of disappointing. This game lacks some of the things that you can do in Genshin. For one thing, you can't jump in this game. If you can visit Earth, probably. Yeah, I hope so. I know you can visit Earth. Oh wait, Serval's here? Why is Serval here? Oh yeah, that's right, because she's one of the tour guides. The thing about RPGs, you can clearly tell if a character is a generic NPC versus an actual, like, you know, like a major character. It's so obvious to pick out, like, who are the major characters versus who are the NPCs just by looking at them. Like, Serval, like, her outfit, like, stands out. I mean, her hair also stands out because she's got, like, weird glowing blue hair at the bottom. But, like, everybody else looks like an NPC. Everyone else in the game looks like an NPC, right? Anyone in this museum. Unless there's another one of them that's around somewhere. Oh, look, Bronya's here. See, you can tell, like I said, you can tell when there's an NPC around. Hope they do something like racing competitions in the Saturn ring. Yeah, that would be cool. That's a cool idea. Oh, I didn't know that she was gonna give me something. What? I got a song. I got another song for the OST for the thing in the Polar Express. Well, that's cool. I'm actually glad I decided to randomly go inside the museum. I wasn't expecting that at all. I thought I had gotten everything out of this place that I could have. Now I'm wondering if there's anybody else in here. Well, I don't think there is. I think that was it. Yeah, I've been in there already. Okay, I think that was everybody. Well, that's cool. So, you would think that I would be kind of burned out from sci-fi games, from playing Starfield, but no, because this game has a sci-fi setting, but it doesn't really feel super sci-fi. Like, Starfield's gonna really feel sci-fi. But anyway, alright, well I think that's pretty much going to be it for this stream. We covered a lot of technical stuff in the first half, and then the stream just kind of devolved into into talking about like Starfield, and then somehow that like segued into Star Rail. Anyway, that's probably going to be it for this stream. I'm thinking I may do, because Hogwarts Legacy was mentioned earlier. If I do have time, I will do a separate stream, other than the typical Thursday one, where I play through a game that I'm trying to finish. And I know I need to finish Hogwarts Legacy, because that is one of the better games that I have that did come out this year. So maybe I'll do a stream featuring Hogwarts Legacy in the near future, before Starfield launches. So that being said, once again, thank you all for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Thanks.